You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 516, the final hype episode for the Ahsoka series. We finally done it. This is a time and true tradition here on the Cantina Cast where we give you all the details that you need to know about the show if for whatever reason you're not aware of what's going to happen. And we're going to speculate on pretty much everything that's been discussed so far. We're going to throw some predictions in there, and we're going to do our always popular and never successful Razor Crest prediction, which will come here in just a little bit. And speaking of always predictable,
not successful. I thought you were going to go.
I had a couple options, but I went with the safer one. Jonesy's with us tonight. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. This is great to be able to bring another final hype episode up, and I can't believe it, man. We're finally here. This is really exciting.
Yeah, we're just days away, and we're not done yet. We've still got a few episodes to kind of get you prepped and ready, but we figured we'd get this out sooner rather than later so that you've got the rest of the week here just in case you get behind on anything. So, but we're not alone. Joining us also tonight is the third member of the show, Lauren. Lauren, welcome to the final hype episode. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I also can't believe that we're already here. I don't think it feels real yet. I don't think it'll feel like Ahsoka's happening until I'm actually watching it. So
yeah. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the premiere is actually today. So today is technically the premiere of episode 1. They're doing the red carpet deal. And I know a lot of our friends that are commonly invited to these were invited, and a lot of them turned it down because of the writer's strike. So I was sitting here scratching my head because everybody that I know that got invited said they weren't going to go. But there are people that are showing up. So I know there are a couple of people that I don't follow.
And we still didn't get an invite.
Well, we've never asked. It's just probably not our thing either. But,
right. Yeah, true.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, do you ask? Do you just expect it? You never expect anything with this group. I can tell you that. You have to go out and seek it. But nonetheless, there are going to be people there tonight. I don't know how that's going to go over. I've already seen some folks saying that the footage is some of the stuff has already been leaked online. So I think at this point, from here on out, if you are spoiler aware or sensitive, you best just get off the internet, unplug, turn off your Wi-Fi, just live your life as a pioneer mountain man for like the next 7 days, and you'll be fine going into that first episode.
Well, you could still tune into our show because we won't go that route. So you're safe with us.
That'll be me. I will be living as a mountain man. I don't want spoilers. So
I love it when Lauren goes mountain man on us. It's great.
Right. She goes off the grid. We don't hear from her for days, and she just suddenly pops up. So
I'll tell you what, speaking of a mountain man, Albert, we're welcoming Steve to the We Are All the Republic tier over on Patreon. So thank you, Steve, for joining the crew with us. We really appreciate that. And of course, a special thanks to all of our now part of the tribe members, Rob, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Riz, Jackson, Sharkman, and Daz, Isabella. Wow, my screen is like all cut off all of a sudden. Jacob, Steve, Reader Reborn. Who am I missing? Josh, Uncle Leon. There we go. Wow, way out of order. Albert, this is what happens when you do the show notes.
Gotta change it up.
There's a reason. I'll get to it. I'll get to it later.
Gosh, it's like all out of whack here. And then, of course, the Delusions of Grandeur members, Rod, CJ, and Alex. Everyone, thank you so much. If you enjoy what you're hearing, we would invite you over to Patreon. We have a lot of great exclusive content, including what we're going to do later this weekend, which is going to be, what are we doing this weekend? We have got, we got the main show. Yeah, we got the main show Sunday, so that's going to be here on YouTube at 9 p.m. That's going to be Thrawn, ready for Ahsoka. And then we'll finish up, get ready for Ahsoka on the Patreon at 10 p.m. with a fun episode of Zeb and Chopper. So everything that we could expect from them. Are we going to get cameos? Who are they? What do they mean to these merry band of rebels? But if you're watching, or if you're listening to this, thanks for downloading. But if you'd like to watch us on the live stream, cantinacast.com/YouTube. If you'd like to join us, you can see all of our smiley faces, including Lauren. And Lauren, I'm going to do my best impression of you while you tell us what you did over on Jedi Novel Archive this week.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's
God.
the big reveal.
Holding the book up. Yeah. So, see, you've distracted me so much, I forgot what I did, even though you're holding the book up. But
here, we'll just solo him there.
That
that way
I'm
you
not
don't
gonna look at you.
Wow,
that's pressure's off.
So what I did was a sneak peek of the Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view collection. So I kind of just gave you some general things to expect from it, but I'm gonna have a full review for that coming up in a couple weeks once the actual collection releases.
Right. So the book releases on August 29th. The embargo has been lifted, so that's why we're able to bring you the sneak peek from over on Jedi Novel Archive. So that's awesome. CantinaCast.com/YouTube. Thanks for doing that, Lauren. Great job. Really nice book, by the way. Nice foil and everything else. So this is a book, if you like these short stories, highly recommend y'all go pick this up. It's really got a nice high quality cover to it. While you're over on the YouTube site, leave us a comment. So, and a special thanks over to Dale. So again, we told y'all if y'all leave a comment, let us know what you think, whatever on your mind. We'll try to feature those. So Dale actually gave us some insight into how the kind of the global part of the HasLab stuff with the ghost work. So some of those numbers aren't calculated into the number that we've been reporting. So while at the last on the way station we reported it was still just a little over 10,000. When you factor in Japan and some of the other places, it's probably well over the first tier, 11,000. So thanks to Dale for chipping that in over there. Go check that episode out if you are curious more about that. Dale does a great job of explaining it.
Yeah. This HasLab thing is my retirement. So I'm just, if we can get a million backers, I think I'll be able to retire pretty nicely here in about 20 to 50 years. So
Fantastic.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone who's in the live stream, by the way. Charlie, Steph, Sky, Alexandra, Jack, Music Train, Cube Dude, Kathy, and Alex so far. We see you folks in the background as well. Thanks for coming out tonight. We hope you enjoy the show.
Yeah. And buckle in because this show may go a little bit longer. It's the only show we're going to be doing tonight. So we've got a lot to get through here and certainly want to hear you guys interact with us. If you have questions, thoughts, predictions, speculation, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll try to get to them as appropriate and as fit. And we're going to have a good time. So without further ado, let's talk about Ahsoka as though we've not talked about it yet. So we always kind of start this off with like the tail of the tape, right? Talking about what we should expect. So for anybody that's not been in the know, we are looking at a total of 8 episodes, and these will release Monday mornings, 2 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Time, or 12 a.m., sorry, Pacific Time. We've talked about this, but the first 2 episodes will premiere on August 23rd, a week from today. 1 episode each week thereafter, no double episodes. So, and we don't typically see that. Maybe in the premiere, maybe in the finale, but that's usually like a season 2, season 3 kind of thing that we've seen with Disney Plus. So no surprises there. The first 3 episodes, we've already got the times. We talked about these recently, but 51 minutes, 38 minutes, and then 31 minutes without any of the fluff. So removing the intros and outros, that's what you're looking at. And I know Lauren and Jonesy, you guys talked about this. I think we all kind of probably agree that the story is what the story is. Yes, it would be nice to have some consistency, but as long as we feel like we're walking away from that story and we feel, we got what we wanted and that we didn't feel shorted in any way, I think we're probably okay with whatever the times may be. The final episode will air October 4th, which seems like forever. Like you think about it, like, my goodness, but that's really only, 7 weeks away. Right. And just to kind of put a bow on this whole thing started filming May of 2022. And that was the principal photography. They wrapped everything up in October of 2022. So it seems like a pretty standard, I guess, shooting schedule, and probably not uncommon that we would wait an entire year for all of the post-production stuff to happen, the reshoot, special effects, all of that. And Jonesy, I'm going to start with you on just kind of your thoughts on any of that. And then one thing that I do want to just touch on is we recently have gotten a lot of different teasers, a lot of little short clips and things. In fact, we got just recently, there was one, I think they called it Master and Apprentice, which was like a 7-minute kind of BTS, almost like a little featurette that they did that's on YouTube if anybody wants to go and take a look at it. And there's some new footage in there, not really expansive footage, but more extensive in terms of some of the shots that we already saw. Some really cool one-liners and things that they said in that. We'll kind of come back to that a little bit. We're going to weave those into the episode tonight. But how are you feeling overall, I guess, about the format of the show, the number of episodes, and then certainly all the multimedia, the promotional stuff that we've gotten here in light of the recent strikes for the writers and the actors?
Yeah, I think basically, with 8 episodes, I think that feels like a really good length. It's kind of what we've been getting across the other content in Star Wars. So we're used to it at this point. The episode lengths, I think, are going to be fine. Like you said at the start of the show, and like Lauren and I have talked about, and you and I have talked about last week, the length of it just needs to fit the show topic, fit the whatever that rhythm is, that just whatever energy it needs, it gets it done. It doesn't belabor, it doesn't stick around too long. It gets to where it needs to go next. Let the episode just breathe the way it needs to go and let it go from there. So I think that's perfectly fine. I'm really liking some of the directors we have. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. A lot of some really great chops and Star Wars experience, of course. So I think overall this is really feeling pretty good. The production times, I'm glad you shared that because I think we've talked a lot about this in the Waystation shows recently as well. And you have about a 5-month shooting schedule, and then you have a whole 10 months to a year for post-production to actually get it to where it's ready to release, right? And so that really informs us a lot about what it takes to make these when we hear shooting has stopped for like the Acolyte or others, and when we would expect to see some of that content. That's without even a strike in the middle of all of that too. So I think that it helps us a little bit understand that of what that might mean for Skeleton Crew as well as for the Acolyte. So thanks for bringing that back up. But I think overall, I mean, this is all feeling pretty good. I love all of the content that we're getting. I mean, with the strikes going on, they needed to do something to build excitement. I think they're doing it the right way. They're leaning heavy in YouTube. They're getting those clicks. They're getting the retweets or whatever. The react. What do you call it now? A reacts or what? Cross tweet. What do you call it now?
I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about.
This whole thing is stupid. I'm talking about Twitter.
Okay. I know.
Whole thing is dumb. Anyway, but no, I think that's really working well. I love the featurette. I thought that was really great to be able to again get not only Rosario Dawson, we know how committed she is, but then to continue to have not only Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy, but of course have kind of the master himself now, Dave Filoni, and bringing in the George Lucas out vibe of it too. So
yeah,
it's really great to have that. Everything kind of comes full circle in understanding a little bit of the history of the Clone Wars too. I think this is the type of thing we needed from this to bring us up to speed for maybe those that aren't as familiar. Although I'm a little disappointed where does it feel like we're getting all of the other character things that we got, like Rosario's 30, Ahsoka in 30 seconds type of thing.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd get the Sabine in 30 seconds and the Hondo Anaka in 30h seconds, right?
Thank you.
Doesn't look like that's going to happen. So, Lauren, you're contractually obligated to be with us on this premiere, and I had a question because we with Disney Plus now we've seen shows come on kind of different days. Really, I mean they pretty much stuck to like a Wednesday. What was it? The other one? I think they did like a Friday release at one point for some of the shows, but we're forcing you to watch the episodes on Wednesday. So is this something that, do you have a preference one way or the other? I don't know that it makes a big difference in the day and light of Disney Plus and streaming television as much as it probably did with regular television or traditional cable television, I guess. But how are you going to be watching these shows at 2 a.m. along with me and the other 5 people that listen to the show?
Okay, 2 a.m. is completely ridiculous, y'all.
She's hosting the watch party. What are you talking about?
Okay,
that's what I was leading up to you, but okay, I didn't want to just jump in like that.
So what I did with Mando, which I will probably do this season as well, is I would wake up early before work, watch it while I drank my coffee, so that way when I open social media, I didn't get spoilers, and then I'd watch it again
Right.
after work. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much my plan. But 2 a.m., I'm not even paying attention at that point. I'm like, my brain's too fried. So no, 2 a.m. will not be happening for me.
All right. Well,
And you remember, Albert, what I was doing for some of the Mandalorian episodes is I was driving into work on Wednesdays, and so I would just have it playing. I wouldn't watch it. I just listened to it while it was going on in the car.
Oh my gosh, dangerous.
Yeah. Well, no, I wasn't watching.
it's
I was
just
just
audio.
listening.
But what if
It's just
something
audio.
so crazy happened that you were like, oh my gosh, I got to look and see what that was?
he's a very he would pull over.
Well, I'm a veteran, so yeah, I'm really good at this. Veteran of listening to Star Wars, so nothing surprises me. But if it did, I hope it was worth it. It must have been amazing. And you guys will do it. You guys will do a great job talking about it.
So
We'll miss you dearly.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay, let's talk about executive producers. So no surprise here. I think all of these names are very familiar. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Kathleen Kennedy, Carrie Beck, and then Colin Wilson is probably the one that maybe most people don't associate with Star Wars even this day, and that's nothing against him. But he's been a producer on Mando and Book of Boba Fett. So they're all veterans in terms of, the producers, I guess, that we've seen so far and their contributions. Although we never really truly know, we mostly accredit the writers and the directors to how the story shapes and develops. The producers do have some influence, right? That's kind of why they get that title. They get to kind of have a say in some of this stuff. But more importantly, and maybe more of a discussion point, let's talk about the directors. So we've now gotten all of the directors have been officially released, or maybe not officially, but they're out there. This is not atypical. We usually get them about a week before, a couple days before the season premiere. They just somehow come out from different viewing listings or the loading up the channel stuff or whatever it is. But on this one here, first off, let me talk about the writing. So Dave Filoni is the writer for all 8. There's nobody else listed, at least as of right now. Again, other people may have been contributing to this, but at least for now, going into the first 8 episodes or the 8 episodes, is Dave Filoni as a primary writer. The directors, though. So we've got Dave Filoni directing 2 episodes, episodes 1 and 5. We've got Steph Green. No, she should not be a surprise to you. She's directed some stuff over on the Tribes of Tatooine, which is in a Book of Boba Fett episode. The Book of Boba Fett episode. She's got episodes 2 and 3. Then we've got Peter Ramsey. We'll get more into these guys here in a little bit. Jonesy, I'm going to go to you first on this one. He's directing episode 4. Then we've got Jennifer Getzinger, who is directing episode 6. Geeta Patel is directing episode 7. And then this new kid, I don't even know who this is. Rick Famuyiwa, I think. I know nothing about him. I'm joking, of course. But Rick has got the last episode, which I think is pretty cool because he just, I mean, we've talked so much.
I was surprised by that. I thought, Filoni would have been on the finale. Right?
Exactly. That's what my thoughts too. So it's a very interesting choice, but I think knowing Rick and how much he is a fan and how much he loves this universe, and he's so steeped in this period because he's been directing Book of Boba Fett and Mando episodes, and he's right there rubbing elbows with Filoni and Favreau through all of this. I think it's in pretty good hands. But Jonesy, I know you'd mentioned earlier you had some interesting things, or there were some things that caught your eye about the directors. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's just more about the chops. I mean, we have Academy and Emmy award winning, or nominated rather, not winning, but nominated directors, throughout this list here. And I think when you look at someone like Geeta Patel as well, I mean, she's directed Runaways, which is really popular. She's been part of House of the Dragon, which is really popular. So she's very well known. And so it's really cool to see her get that penultimate episode, that setup episode, which can be, it could be a make or break episode for a series, right? Because that's the one that really gets you ready and primed for that finale to really deliver on all the things you set up. So episode 7, everything really hinges on this. But again, it was a little, while it was surprising Filoni wasn't on it, it wasn't necessarily surprising. They're like, okay, Famuyiwa is going to be the guy that wraps this thing up, right?
Yeah.
He's been very popular. He's been very successful in the series so far. I mean, but I mean, Steph Green, I mean, Tribes of Tatooine is one of the highlights, I think, from Book of Boba Fett, right? Mm-hmm. And so for a lot of people, that was, I mean, I think for you is one of your favorite episodes, if I recall.
Yeah.
And so it's just really great. I mean, it's a good list, right? And it's a good consistent list. It's not too many people around, but everybody has some kind of experience with Star Wars in some way. And it's all kind of the Filoni verse of Star Wars, which is really interesting and kind of exciting that they all kind of get what his vision is. And when you have other folks like Favreau in the background as well, it feels like the same group, kind of the same knit family that keeps coming up to the table, which I think for us is a positive thing because that gives us comfort. I think it probably gives Filoni comfort too of what they're able to deliver from a start to kind of soup to nuts type of thing for him with this story, writing it and setting out the vision, directing some of it and moving it forward, not having Favreau as the writing partner on this one. So I really like this. I think this is a great mix here.
Yeah. Lauren, I guess on this, when you look at the list of directors, I think there are some in some camps that say, oh, there's no consistency here. We've got different people. It's a revolving door, that kind of thing. I don't know. Personally, I haven't really felt that with Star Wars television, kind of to what Jonesy was talking about. It's not like other series, right? We have such a very vast kind of established lore. There's so much that's been written out there that you almost have some guidelines and some rules that you kind of have to play in. And it doesn't feel like these directors really stray too far out of that, but are still able to kind of bring their own spin and their own unique take as a director to all these. Agreed on that front? And is there anything that's concerning or anything interesting, I guess, that caught your eye about the group of directors that are lined up here?
Well, I do like that this list of directors, it's like Jonesy was saying, they have a proven track record, especially with Star Wars. And so I like that. I like it that with some of these people, like, we know what we're going to get, sort of, like the kind of tone that we might get, I guess you could say. And in addition to that, I appreciate that Dave Filoni wrote all episodes. To me, that is really key, is making sure the writing is consistent. And if the story's consistent, the pacing's consistent, then maybe the way that story's told, we can afford to have a little bit of variety there. But the story itself, we know that it's going to be consistent throughout. So for me, I think that sounds great how they have it arranged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while there's a couple that don't have Star Wars experience like exclusively. So I think Jennifer Getzinger and Gita Patel don't specifically have Star Wars. They have Marvel experience, which I think is kind of just as good in a lot of different ways because they just know how to manage a property like this, and they also understand everything that goes behind it with the fandom and the energy, the excitement, how much it means to people, especially when you have the creator there and how much it means to him. I think that can still really work well. So it's really good to have that experience come in. Even if it's not Star Wars specifically, it still fits right in with Star Wars, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I agree. And I think to kind of hit the point a little bit harder, even though we have directors coming in for their first time, it's a good mix of kind of what I would call seasoned directors, well-established directors within Star Wars television, with mixed in with newcomers. On top of all that, right? That's probably enough for most series. On top of all that, you have these guardrails of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau on the sides, and so they were not going to allow you to really stray outside of what we would come to expect thematically with Star Wars. And not only that, but like so far, I think he is 3 for 3 on the live action series. But George Lucas tends to sit at some point during some of these episodes and just kind of sits back and watches. And you got to think as a director, right? I'm coming in, the creator, the master of all of this is sitting right there. I don't think you're going to go a little too crazy. I think you're going to try to like honor what they've done. I mean, at least that's what I would try to do. Is
You're
right.
gonna
Try
behave.
Exactly. You're going to try to do your own thing. I'm not saying they're being handcuffed or held back from putting their own unique spin and directing touch on it. But at the same time, you've got to honor the IP. And I personally, I think they've done a really good job of that so far. And nothing's been out of the norm or so far out there that we're scratching our heads and going, man, this doesn't feel like Star Wars to me.
Well, I think someone that gets overlooked a lot is Carrie Beck, right? I mean, she's in the producer role, the executive producer, but she's been there with Filoni forever.
Yeah.
Almost not solely responsible, but she had a driving force in bringing back the Clone Wars, right? And so many of these other projects that we get to enjoy now, even Bad Batch, even still. So, that Carrie Beck is there. You talk about like a partner with Dave Filoni, someone who's just been with him for a long time. So you just have a lot of confidence and faith that what we're going to get is going to be something of really high quality that we're going to enjoy. And it'll make sense within the context of all the other, pieces of, of TV and whatever else we have up to date. They'll all fit. It'll all make sense.
Yeah. Before we get into the cast scene, just quickly on the music, Kevin Kiner is
Never heard of him.
I got so excited when he was announced, and I'm still excited. When you watch,
it was weird. I was a little surprised almost because he's just so associated with animation. He's like, wow, man, cool. He's going to go live action as well.
Wow, and you think about what he did, at least for me, what he did on Rebels and some of those episodes, right? We've talked about how during the first season of Rebels, it was a really good. They leaned heavily on the Williams soundtracks, right? And we heard that woven in, and sometimes just lifted right out of the soundtrack. They were like not even bashful about just playing Return of the Jedi track when somebody was doing, I think it was Ezra or Kanan was doing something in one of the episodes during season 1. But as that series evolved, you got a sense that Kiner was digging back into his Clone War roots. He was starting to come up with his own themes, and there are some very unique themes, some very unique tracks that evolved starting with season 2 all the way up to season 4. So for me, it feels like it's just kind of an extension of season 4 in a lot of ways, but specifically around the music, I'm really excited that they're bringing Kevin Kiner back for this. I have already, if you've not had a chance to go back in the last 2-3 days as of this recording, so August, what are we, 16th, 17th? In the last 2 or 3 days, they've released these little clips, these promo clips, and there's music in there that sounds like it's from the Ahsoka series. Like it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like anything we heard from Clone Wars. Doesn't sound like anything from Rebels. Nothing from the movies. And I can only assume this is stuff they're using small bits and pieces from the soundtrack that Kiner's already recorded. It has a very unique sound to it. And so I don't want to dig too much into this or kind of play it too hard because I'm just not really sure where they're going to go with this. But if that's the case, and I think it's a good indication that we're about to get a good soundtrack that's going to feel thematically in tune with what we would expect from a Ahsoka series, especially going into like this kind of a unknown type of era or unknown space. That's what kind of the feelings, I guess, that they get conjured up when you hear some of those clips playing. Have you guys ever had a chance to listen to that, or did you guys pick up on anything like that?
Yeah, and what makes me excited about the fact that he's done Clone Wars and Rebels, so he's been with these characters. And so that also makes me happy too, because I feel like a big part of us feeling like, that transition from animation to live action. I think music is a big part of that, even though a lot of us might not really be able to put our finger on it exactly.
Yeah.
But getting that relationship with the characters, getting into what's happening on screen, a lot of times it's the music that helps drive that. And so I'm excited that there's going to be like a continuity from animation into live action, at least with sort of the vibe of the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've liked it so far. I hope it's actually real. I mean, they kind of dupe us on music a lot with trailers and with teasers and things like that. But given that we're so close, it seems more. There seems a much higher degree of opportunity here that there is probably something from the series. But I hope that's the case. I mean, because I've enjoyed it so far. It did jump out to me a little bit. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see
you're right.
what's it.
This wouldn't be Star Wars has done that in the past. They brought in directors exclusively for a clip, for a trailer. Like we've had directors that have come in and simply put a trailer together. We've had directors or music producers come in and lay down a couple tracks for stuff. I think of the Last Jedi, right? And that little bump, the string intro that we got never made it to the final soundtrack, but I mean, it was iconic and it got everybody pumped and excited, and it was perfectly laid down for that trailer. So it wouldn't be the first time, but to your point, I think we're probably on track to see some of this stuff appear in the series since we're so close and at 0 hour at this point. Okay, let me get through this long list of casting, and then Lauren, I'm going to start with you. I want your thoughts on like who stands out and who you're looking forward to the most from this. So
I think y'all know the answer
Gosh,
to that, but okay.
yeah, I know.
Or you could just watch the last 8 hours of content we've done on this stuff. Yeah.
Right. So let's start from the top. Hayden Christensen as no, I'm kidding.
Okay, episode's over. That's all I care about.
That's all. All right, Jonesy, how about you? No. So Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano, Natasha Lou Bordizzo as Sabine Wren, Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Harrison Dillon. We already know these guys. Ray Stevenson as Balin Skoll, Ivana Sankno as Shin Hati, Deanna Lee Inosato as Morgan Elsbeth. Again, related to Bruce Lee. I always find that just amazing and coincidental or really cool, I guess. David Tennant as Hu Yang. We've got Lars Mikkelsen as Grand Admiral Thrawn, although he's not they haven't, I don't know, officially confirmed him, I guess. Or I guess maybe they have at this point. They haven't confirmed the next guy, Iman Esfandi as Ezra Bridger, although we saw his face and he's already come out and said it. We still haven't had anything explicitly say that. A newcomer, up-and-coming actor, Hayden Christensen, is be playing Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. Maybe we'll see. Genevieve O'Reilly.
He looks younger than he sometimes is.
Yep. Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. Paul Darnell as Marek, which is the Inquisitor that you see in some of the trailers. Wes Chatham as Admiral Gilad Paleon. So this is the same actor that we saw in season 3 of The Mandalorian. And then Chopper as himself, which I always find hilarious that they always list Chopper as himself when it's half the time it's Dave Filoni doing the voice. Right. But all right, so Lauren, you can't say Hayden Christensen, but who on this list are you most excited about seeing make an appearance here in... I'm kidding. You can say Hayden Christensen. Chopper.
Okay, well, if I say Hayden Christensen, that's just boring because everybody knows I'm going to say that. But aside from Hayden Christensen, I'm so excited for Ray Stevenson's portrayal of Balin Skoll. I know I've said that a lot as well. I can't get over the way that he was talking about the character at Celebration, so I'm really excited to see this character and to just kind of see what he does with it. And then I guess, other than that, I'm also interested in actually getting to see Rosario Dawson play Ahsoka for longer than just, a couple of episodes. I'm excited to see her really get deeper into the character, because after those first 2 episodes, I mean, I think I'm just so attached to the animated Ahsoka that I haven't really fully gotten super invested in Rosario yet. So I'm excited to see more of her, so that way I can connect more with the live action version of the character.
That's actually a great way to put that. Yeah.
Because I'm in the same boat, honestly. And I've already made my thoughts clear in terms of where I feel like she's been with the character. And again, it's not bad. It's just there's something that I'm not connecting with, like you said. It's just not. I don't feel as vested as in the live action Ahsoka as much as I did with Eckstein's animation, which is weird because it's animated, right? But that just kind of credit to the writing and credit to Ashley's portrayal of that character. Jonesy, looking at this list, what stands out? Who are you most excited about seeing in a live action for the first time, maybe for the first time on some of these characters?
Yeah, I mean, Ray Stevenson and Ivana Sankno. I mean, Balin Skull and Shin Hati. I mean, I want to know the dynamic. I want to know the history of the characters, where they're coming from, why they are the way they are. I mean, I'm already invested in these characters. I mean, maybe, and I don't think it's just because Ray Stevenson has passed. I think it's because the way that they have presented these, to Lauren, what she was saying, like what we heard at Celebration, what we've heard since then, right, in some of the articles, what we see on screen, what we continue to see more of, is just so compelling. I mean, it might be the most interesting part of the series, and depending on where they go with all of this. But I think and I think you and I have talked a little bit about this before, Albert, I think where this show kind of hinges, though, is it might hinge, aside if we take the Ahsoka character out of this, is probably Natasha Liu Bordizzo as Sabine Wren. I think this is probably, it could very well be the most important character in the series of how well we feel like it goes, right? That relationship with Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, what is her, where is she coming from? Like, where is she, like, how does Ezra fit into it? What's her link to the Force? What's with the lightsaber? What is what are her ups and downs look like, right? She might end up being one of the more dynamic characters on, for the quote unquote good guys. And then we've got, both Balin and Shin Hati on the other side, who are probably the most compelling on the villain side of things so far.
Yeah, I 100% co-sign and agree with all of that. And if you think about it, with 8 episodes, we are going to have kind of a limited focus on where we can go with some of these characters. Naturally, some of these characters we're going to get some developments for them. Very likely with Shin Hati and Balin Skull. I would venture to guess we're going to get some background on them at some point because they're so intriguing characters, right?
They have so much screen time. I think we have to, right?
Exactly. We've seen so much of them already in the trailer,
right?
But at some point, the story has to have a focus, and I think you're 100% right. I think that focus is going to be Ahsoka, kind of what like Lauren is saying. We're going to see a lot of Ahsoka screen time, and we're going to see a lot of Sabine screen time, and I think that's primarily, at least for this first season, if should there be more seasons for this first season, I think we're going to get a heavy dose of that, and that's where we're going to be kind of be leaning. We're going to be seeing the series through their eyes, for lack of a better term. Although the other characters are still going to be there, I'm not saying they won't. But that's primarily what we're going to get. So I think you're right. I think we're going to get some really big developments, some character developments. I think we're going to latch onto these characters very hard. And we'll get to more of this in a little bit because they've done something here very, very recently with these little teasers. There seems to be a shifted focus. And it started about a week ago, technically. But there seems to be a focus shifting towards the master and apprentice relationship. And I think that's an angle and an aspect of the series that we hadn't really considered as deeply as we probably should at this point, given how much attention and focus it's starting to garner. So I would agree with all of those. I would throw in, I'm going to throw in Thrawn in here because this is the live action debut Thrawn, right? And all the prosthetics or the makeup all aside, whether it's going to look weird or look too much like Elon Musk, having Mickelson come in and portray this character in live action, and he does such a great job. I don't know. I don't know which way I'm going to go, like if I'm going to love him or hate him. But there's something about when Mickelson speaks and the way he delivers his lines, I think some of the nuance and the personality is because Thrawn doesn't facially move very much in the animated series, right? Like it works. And I'm just curious as to, like, Mickelson is kind of I wouldn't say he's a dynamic actor, but he almost has to restrain himself physically to kind of keep that portrayal. Otherwise, I'm worried, or I just kind of want to see where this is going to go. And does it veer off into I don't want to say comedic, but does it veer off into the silliness of it? And that's a fear of mine. So I'm going to be all eyes on Thrawn with Peoples. I'm going to be all eyes on Thrawn and looking to see, does that translate into live action, similar to what we've seen with all these other characters? I'm not even really concerned about the other ones. I think everybody else is fine at this point, but that one almost feels like it's going to be a make or break for a lot of fans.
Well, we know that he had to change the way that he does the voice in the studio. He is more dynamic, right? And he has to dial that back. So how is the voice going to change? He said that he had to tweak it. So is it going to lose that audible sense too? If you were to close your eyes, does it still sound like Thrawn, or does it sound a little too different, right? So I think that'll be really interesting to see how that character evolves and how it plays live action, because I think it's really cool. But again, I love that we got the character from the series and we get them live action. I have a feeling he got Chopper the job too. I don't think Chopper was going to be cast, so
right.
Chopper, better thank him. He got lucky there. So I mean,
put a good word in for him.
It's cool. It's like when Zeb, right? We had Steve Blum do the voice too. It's really cool. I mean, we don't always get those opportunities, so it's really cool when they're able to come in and do it live action too.
Yeah. Well, he's got it easy though, because he's just doing a voiceover since it's
Yeah, but even still, right? I mean, they can get creative with certain things, but it's just cool that they make the transition, right? It doesn't always happen with live action.
Yeah.
Well, and you make a good point about the voice, because I think the voice is partially why I haven't connected with Rosario's Ahsoka in the same way that I have Ashley Eckstein. So, I mean, I'm hoping that with time, we can all just let go of that, because the voices are probably going to be a little bit different. It's not the end of the world. It's going to be okay. But I think it's just one of those things that, like, we do have to spend more time with the characters to kind of get over that hurdle. And then I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll go to the comments just quickly here. So Gary says, if Balin is played half as good as Stevenson played Titus Pullo in Rome, the series Rome, we were in for a sweet character. And I know Alex is in the chat too. I think he's a fan of this series and has been going on and on about how great Ray Stevenson is in that series as well. And he's just such a presence. Like, I think this guy's like 6'3" or something is what I saw.
He's a big dude, yeah.
I mean, he's massive. And I want to see if they're going to play on his physicality in some ways in this, because I don't know how tall Rosario Dawson is, but if it's 6'3" coming at me, it's like, I'm 5 and Dad's coming at me with a lightsaber, and I think that's a visual that I would love to see, or 50 and Dad's coming at me, whatever. But I want to see that visual of his presence, that physical presence, and then compared to like Shin Hati, she's pretty small. I think Ivana Sanko is like a pretty small person, at least from what I could see at Celebration. So I didn't get to see them on stage together or whatever, but I'm with you there. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty good matching. Also, Gary just said, I'm very curious how many original trilogy characters will appear if this is based on Heir to the Empire. I'm glad you brought up Heir to the Empire, because the next 30 minutes will be dedicated to our breakdown of how they can weave in some of the story. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to do that, but I'm excited about it too. But we're going to get into the OT characters a little bit, because we're going to talk about possible cameos and things that other characters we'd like to see pop up in this series. So hold on to that thought, and we'll come back to here a little bit.
Ivana Sakno is 5'8", by the way. In case
is she?
Cares. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
And I forgive you,
everybody
Gary.
else is just a lot taller than her in the
Right, she's just like working with giants, because she seems like petite and tiny. Like I was thinking, 4'5", 4'6", somewhere around there, but 5'8", wow. Okay, that's enough. These jokes aren't landing very well. So let's see. All right, can we talk about Hayden Christensen? Because Jonesy and I had a chance to talk about it, but I don't know that we've gotten your thoughts on this, Lauren. At least I don't remember if you all talked about it while I was gone, but when you heard the voiceover and you heard him kind of reciting lines similar to what we've heard in, what was it, Clone Wars, I think, in one of those episodes?
I think Tales of the Jedi, yeah.
Tales of the Jedi, that's what it was. Sorry, thank you. What was the visceral reaction?
I mean, I was like, wow, I don't know. I mean, I freaked out. There's not really much words to put to it. No, I was really excited, because I was hoping for a while that we would get to see him in the show, because he's a key part of who Ahsoka is. So I was hoping that he would make an appearance. So like, and I know that there's been a lot of rumors and speculation about that for a long time, but getting that actually in the trailer, like a little sneak peek of he's going to be involved in some way, that was really exciting for me. So yeah, that just made me even more excited for the show.
And to be clear, I'm going to preface this next question. To be clear, I'm 100% positive. I feel 100% positive that he's going to be in the show. But do you think Lucasfilm and Disney would have brought Hayden in to record that voiceover simply for this teaser trailer, and we don't see them? What do you think the chances are of that, Jonesy?
0.
Lauren?
Yeah, that would be like shooting themselves in the foot.
Cruel and unusual punishment is the word was kind of what I was thinking.
That would be a really bad choice.
That would be a bait and switch. Yeah, that would be a bait and switch.
So like the TIE fighter in Rogue One.
That was different, though, right?
It would be even worse than that.
That is not the same. That is not the same.
It's not.
Right?
They're not in the same ballpark. Not even close, right? All right. Let's see. I think the other...
let me, real quick on the Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
I really like how they've started to frame that up, though, with the... I think at the top of the show, you were talking about the master and apprentice, although they've kind of evolved that lately into more of the mentorship role. But again, it's more of a passing of that line from Anakin to Ahsoka and then to Sabine. So I like how they're framing that up with Hayden, or with Anakin, really, and that's how he's working into this, is where I'm interested actually in this, and because I want to see some sort of reconciliation or some sort of understanding between Ahsoka and Anakin. Closure, I think, is maybe perhaps the best term I could come up with. But to be able to frame all of that and then have that effect on Sabine, I think that's what makes Star Wars so potentially so powerful and something that the character learns from their experiences, mistakes, the things that went well, but they're also able to close that and start a new chapter with somebody else that with the expectations that we'll do better, right? And that we can repair some of those things. I'm encouraged based on some of the content that we had, especially the little featurette that we got. I really started to build that confidence in me. I really hope we get that. I think that would be really great to get some closure.
Yeah.
I hope that we get a little moment where it's kind of like, it makes me think about the Kenobi show where Obi-Wan couldn't really move on until Vader / Anakin, depending on what side you're on, said, "I'm not your failure. I killed Anakin Skywalker." Like, if Ahsoka gets to have some sort of a making peace moment with Anakin in whatever way, shape, or form that may take, I mean, I could see kind of like a similar situation where that's really what she needs to be able to turn the page and actually move forward instead of living in regret.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would agree. And we've speculated on kind of her demeanor, for lack of a better term, in the Mandalorian season 3 or Mandalorian seasons, right? And on top of what we've seen already in the Ahsoka series, she doesn't seem like herself. And I know she's been through a lot. Things have changed. Maybe she's still dealing with some of that guilt and that grief of what happened with her master and having left him and him going to the dark side. And maybe we'll get into all of that. I mean, if the series is named Ahsoka, I would hope we get into some elements of that. And it feels like Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, not Darth Vader, as Anakin Skywalker probably needs to be a part of that in some way, whether it's, again, a voiceover, Force Ghost, flashback. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it feels like she is going to need that closure. And honestly, I think a lot of fans, I think we all kind of need it too. Like, we kind of want to move on and see what's next for Ahsoka, knowing what has already happened with her and Anakin Skywalker.
He's holding her back.
Yeah, right. Let's see. I was just kind of looking through the list. Paul Darnell is Merrick. We don't really have a lot there. Genevieve O'Reilly, I mean, I don't think we're going to get a heavy dose of her at all. I think she'll probably be in a couple of we may see her, have already seen her in all of the episodes and all of her appearances, quite honestly. And that maybe isn't a bad thing, but I think it's important to kind of contextualize where we are in the galaxy and kind of the current threat level, the state of the galaxy from their perspective, from the Senate's perspective, and that's probably all we need. So I don't think we're going to get much of her or see her. And kind of like we talked a little bit earlier, we'll probably come back to this too. As far as Ezra Bridger goes, I have a sinking feeling that we're probably not going to get a lot of Ezra. And if we do, it's going to be much later in the series, and we're going to be, pining for more by the time the series is over. But I am interested to see how much he has changed and certainly what Isfandi brings to the character, because Ezra is such a unique character. He was, at such a young age, and we just did a whole breakdown. So if you haven't had a chance to go listen or watch that show, we've got it out there. But I am interested to see his spin on Ezra Bridger and where he is, like when we get caught up with him, where he is mentally and physically in a lot of ways, and especially with his connection with the Force and having been removed from his family, which is pretty pivotal. I mean, it's kind of one of the centerpieces of that character. So I guess time will tell. Anything else, guys, on the characters? Anything you want to wax? Anything else before we get into some of the known of the series?
I think it's what's important about I'm sorry, Lauren. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to your point about Ezra, I could see us not really seeing much of him until the very end, and then it being possibly like a cliffhanger of some sort, kind of like Luke and The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Throwing the lightsaber back is what Jonesy said. Jonesy, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think with Mon Mothma, it's really important, like you said, to really frame up where the galaxy's at, but also that tension with Hera, I think, and that's where Hera's character really can take off too, and leverage that, and what is the disconnect between the New Republic and whatever's growing in this darkness, and how does that play into some of the other characters too, like that we have been in other content, right? So even like a Princess Leia or I guess Senator Organa or whatever she is at this point, so how does that fit in with the broader narrative of the New Republic? I think is a good undertone. It's not going to be the star of the story, but it's that that note that just kind of rings throughout of it of this is why we're fighting it. And to have that tension with the good guys, right, and how they're struggling, like we saw in Mandalorian, for that to continue to be a centerpiece, maybe not dwelling on it, but it creates that underlying tension across the galaxy of why it's important, but also that you can't motivate people in order to make a difference quite yet, given the history of the Empire and everything else.
All right, well let's talk about what we know. And again, for anybody that's spoiler sensitive, we're only going to discuss literally the things that they've either said in trailers or in official interviews with the cast or directors, whoever it may be. And it's honestly, when you think about it, it's really not a lot. Like, they've done a pretty good job of keeping things under wraps. We know the basic outline of the story. I think we kind of have a good sense of what it's pretty obvious. I mean, we've known since probably season 4 of Rebels, arguably. But we know more or less where this story is ultimately heading. How we get there, I think, is the larger unknown. I think that's what we're going to mostly speculate on here. But of course, this series is going to be set sometime after the events of Return of the Jedi, set in that Mandalorian universe, somewhere about 9 ABY, which is where we find ourselves in season 3 of The Mandalorian, somewhere in there. They are on a race to find Ezra and Thrawn. We know that pretty clearly at this point. I want to come back to this one in just a second, but it does feel like it is turning into more of a master and apprentice story, kind of like what Jonesy was talking about. Dave Filoni in one of the featurettes recently said that this was the passing of the baton from Anakin to Ahsoka, now Ahsoka to Sabine. And for me, that implies a few things, I think, that I hadn't really thought through as much in terms of, what all Sabine is learning from Ahsoka, right? And also, I want, before I get on a soapbox, I don't want to get too much into that. We have a potentially new Jedi, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. Last week, they had one of the clips, and it was about Sabine Wren, and the title of the clip said "A New Jedi." And since then, I think they've done a couple of things that kind of lead you to believe like she is a Jedi. Whether she's Force sensitive or has Force abilities, that's a whole nother discussion. But in terms of how she's being trained and the discipline that Ahsoka is trying to pass down to her, it's very much 100% Jedi-minded, Jedi-lined, I guess, if you will. So, and then the other couple things there is we know that we've got Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. They are mercenaries, for lack of a better term, right now. They seem to be working with Morgan Elsbeth. To what end? We only can assume that it is to bring back Thrawn, but the why, we don't know why. What's in it for them? Maybe we'll speculate on that here in just a little bit. And then Thrawn's going to be in the series, and Purrgil's in the series. So that's all you probably need to know. And I say that because if you're a Star Wars Rebels fan or a fan of Star Wars and you're listening to the show, watching the live feed, you probably can kind of fill in the blanks on most of the other stuff there. But I want to just leave this kind of final thought. In that one series, or in that little featurette, Kathleen Kennedy comes on, and she very much makes a declaration that you don't necessarily need to know everything that happened in Rebels, that they're trying to set this series up so that it is more palpable by other people. So anybody that maybe, didn't watch the Rebels series or has an interest in Ahsoka because maybe they saw Clone Wars or maybe they just saw her for the first time in The Mandalorian, but it does feel like the series is being primed to kind of be there for the more experienced, veteran, seasoned Star Wars people, and also those that are dipping their toe for the first time into this lore and specifically into this era of Star Wars. So did I leave anything out? Is there anything that you guys would add as like, hey, don't forget this piece because, it's going to be vital or crucial or it's part of the, the main story or thread that we're looking at here?
I mean, you didn't mention a world between worlds, but okay.
Well,
we don't know that for a fact.
We don't know for a fact.
Not exactly confirmed.
They hint
Right.
strongly. They hint strongly at it in some roundabout ways. But yeah, that's about the only thing that was left out.
We did a whole show on it too. So if you want more, go watch the.
We do
go
a
watch
show on
the
everything, though.
Yeah, that's true. Lauren, you were going to say something. Is there anything else that you would add in there?
No, I mean, I was just reflecting. I really think you hit the main points. I do like it that there is this angle of you don't have to be a super expert to watch this, because I know I have some friends that are like more casual Star Wars fans, and that has been some of their complaints about some of the other TV shows is they feel like they can't follow it. So hopefully this show will be a little bit easier for people to follow that aren't like super deep into it, because I think that just makes it more fun for everybody if we're all watching it together. So I'm glad to hear that it's targeted towards that group as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. Clone Wars came out 15 years ago, right? I mean, it's been out a long time. We've got I think we've got like 11 seasons in total of content that has Ahsoka in it all the way to Rebels. So it's a lot of ground to cover. So, I mean, they have to get this right. You can't alienate an audience thinking that they've seen really any of it. And maybe they've seen a few things. Maybe the characters are, somewhat familiar, or at least they're recognizable in some ways. But bringing them on board and giving us a little flavor of who they are without belaboring that and getting all the detail. You don't really need all that to figure out where they're at now. You could still establish that in some really really grounding ways, and it'd be fine. So I like that they're taking that approach, because I think they have to. That you don't have a choice in this matter. You only have 8 episodes. You got to get to the business, right? After a couple of episodes, you got to feel like you're comfortable with the main players, and then you introduce 1 or 2 here and there as you go, and then you give that little flair within the conflict or the dialogue between the characters, and you can bring them up to speed pretty quickly. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe I want to go explore that character and from where they came from in a previous life. And then you can go back and explore those specific episodes or those story arcs. So I think the way they're doing this is the right way to do it.
So Jonesy, I guess your opinion just quickly on the marketing that they've done so far and the promotions that they've done so far, because we have talked about it a little bit, but given the fact that we're in the writer's strike and we don't get the typical, press junket with all of the actors and kind of rotating on different stages at different areas and providing their perspectives and tidbits, and a lot of that goes. I mean, I don't think people realize how much stock goes into people buying into the show and getting on board and being hyped for the show, and they just not had that, right, because of the strike. And so we kind of called it. We said we would probably see this blitzkrieg, almost a tsunami of little clips, like as we have been seeing. Do you think that's enough? Do you think they've done enough? The show notwithstanding, because I would, again, we're anticipating that the show is going to be able to get somebody up to speed and make you want to care for the characters, which, all writers and want to do. But do you think they've done enough, at least so far, with the promotion stuff, or do you think there's still more to go here in the last 7 days?
I think they've done well. Have they gone far enough? I think we talked about this recently. I think it would have been great to see more character profiles for the other characters. I think especially for the ones who will factor into the story. So with Sabine, Baylan Skoll, and Shin Hati, they could kind of be a pair, right? Mm-hmm. Even Morgan Elsbeth. I think bringing some of those characters to screen, at least for one little featurette or one little 30-second clip, I think would have been really good. But also how they've been doing it is really working, though, I think, too. Focus on Ahsoka, get people to really relate to the character, relate to the person behind the character, which is really what they've been doing with Rosario. She's a very likable person, Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
And so getting behind to where you just want to watch this person and watch them succeed because they love the character so much. So I like what they've been doing. I would like to see a little bit more just to round it out a little bit to get people excited about these other people, because they don't really explain who Hera is. They don't know who this droid is. They don't know they have an idea of who some of these dark Jedi type of characters are, but having just that this tiny little layer down, just a little more detail on some of these other things would really make it a perfect marketing campaign. At least for me, who consumes most of my content, like on a YouTube or something like that, rather than on television or something, in those mediums. So, So I think pretty close to amazing, but really solid, really good so far, with a couple of rooms. I hope we get a little bit, but I'm not holding my breath at this point.
Yeah. How about you, Lauren? You wanting to see more of what they've done so far? Would you like to see them get into some of these kind of character spotlight featurette things here in the last 7 days?
The character spotlights would be cool. I will say that sometimes my concern with too much trailers is we've seen the whole show before it even comes out. And I definitely don't want that. Like, I want there to still be some surprises. But I do appreciate how, even though they've released a lot of promo stuff, it doesn't feel like they're showing too much footage. Like, some of it is like scenes that we've kind of seen in the trailer before, and they're just kind of showing maybe like a little bit longer of a clip, or maybe a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not like spoiling anything, which as a spoiler sensitive person, that's usually my fear. So I think they're doing a good job of hitting that balance of showing us enough to keep us interested in thinking about it without like revealing too much.
Yeah.
Great point.
When I was thinking too, like with the Andor series, all of the series so far, even like if you think of the Mando series, it feels like when we get the promos and teasers leading up to all 3 seasons, we've only ever really gotten like the first 2, maybe 3rd episode in, and it's like one clip from like episode 5 or episode 6, and there's not enough there to even kind of lead you any one way or the other, right? Even with I was thinking with Andor was the same way. Like, even though they were doing quite a bit of, it felt like they were doing quite a bit of featurettes and getting people excited for the series. A lot of what we saw was all happening in those first 3-4 episodes again, and there was some stuff that was embedded from later on, which I thought was very surprising retrospectively that they had done that. But again, it wasn't really anything to kind of tip you off one way or the other. This series, I would say, it almost feels like we have seen maybe stuff from the first 1 or 2 episodes. I don't anticipate that they'll go any further than that. I think if they do, they're playing with fire, just given the nature of the story that they're trying to tell and some of the things that we're predicting, like, you know, the bringing in Ezra, bringing in Thrawn. How do they get there? I don't know how you show some of that stuff and tease it without spoiling that. I think it's probably more sensitive in that regard. But
I view this, the way that they've done this marketing campaign is it's closer to Mando season 3 than like Mando season 1 or 2. Mando season 1 and 2, they were trying to sell you on the vibe, the tone, you know, kind of a central anchor for the show, but just getting you excited about the possibilities of all of it. And then season 3 really gave you more of a setting you up for the story aspect of where it could go, and then leaving it open ended for speculation, and then the show would pick up from there. And I think this is where Ahsoka has done very similar marketing campaign, at least from the trailer perspective, to set you up for the story. You get an idea of it, but not a whole lot of detail. So it really opens them up to be able to deliver that and bring you along that journey at the same time without and introduce you a little bit to the characters, and they'll figure it out in the actual show when we get each episode. So I kind of equate it more like that season 3 of Mando.
Yeah, I can see that. It does feel that. It does feel that way in a lot of ways. Just here's an interesting take, or a different take. Gary says in the chat, I think the strike happening now is great. They have oversold the hell out of everything so many times by parading the actors out to hype. So almost a kind of the inverse of what we're talking about. Like, I guess Gary's feeling like, hey, they brought out the actors too many times, and now it's just really they're focusing on the show itself. Like, show me what you're bringing, and I'll buy in. I don't need the sales pitch from the salesmen. Just show me the product, and let's go with it.
They had to be more thoughtful with the marketing campaign, right? And they was the closer they got to it being a reality, they had to go and make make very recuts on these. They had to go reshape some of these featurettes and things. So some of this might be content they have, but they've had to go and reshape and reformulate because they're not going to have the Good Morning of Americas and everything else out there, the late night talk shows, all that. So it's a good point.
Yeah.
I still don't know if it's a great thing to have the strike right now, but I mean, from wanting more
Right.
Star Wars content, of course, not from why they're striking, but at the same time, I think the way they've adjusted has been probably as good as you could probably expect.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what he was implying at all. He's
Oh, I know, yeah.
So, all right. So next section, let's talk about, I want to kind of have a discussion and we can start waxing in our own predictions based on some of the things that we've already seen. And the way I did this is I kind of pulled some, and we've never done this before, but I thought I'd pull in some quotes. Some of this stuff we've had a chance to talk about. We've talked about maybe weeks ago now, maybe even months ago now. But given, how much we know about the series, which maybe is not a whole lot still, but given what we know now and certainly what kind of where we're leaning with certain things, I wanted to kind of revisit some of these questions and pose them to you guys and kind of let's just talk it through and see where you're landing if you feel any different about some of this stuff. So one of the earlier on, and this is from the Ahsoka trailer, and Jonesy, I'm going to go to you because I think we had a discussion candidly about this one, but this was the line from Bale and Skull that said, "One must destroy in order to create." And I don't even remember what it was we predicted or thought he possibly could have been talking about there, but I guess as of today, what do you think he's discussed? Is there anything that what is he talking about here? What is he talking about destroying in order to create? What is he trying to create here?
Actually, I think we talked about kind of two things, or at least I think I remember two things from my perspective. I think one, if a world between worlds is involved, that was one angle, right? You have to be able to destroy, and you have the immense power to that in order to create an empire. I think the other side of that, it's still, the second option is probably still along the same lines. You bring in Thrawn, you completely obliterate the galaxy in order to rebuild and start afresh. This is the Emperor's plan, right? This was Project Necromancer. This was the contingency, right? It was to basically level the empire and everything else, build your core of really loyal subjects, and then rebuild the empire bigger, better than ever, resurrect the emperor, and you're off and running, right? So I think those are probably the two more obvious, or the more front and center, maybe not obvious, but front and center options that we have. And I think in general, I mean, this is for Star Wars, it's pretty simple and straightforward and easy to understand, easy to grasp onto. So I think there's a pretty realistic opportunity that might be what it is. It could be something as straightforward as either one of those.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you this is not a softball. So Lauren, you got the next one here. What happens when we find Thrawn? Like, how do you even answer this question?
I mean,
and I think I want to say it wasn't Morgan Elsbeth. I think it was it Shin Hati who said this line in the trailer? Anybody recall? It was one of them that was asking what happens when we find Thrawn.
Also,
But what happens
seen
if they
so
do?
I've seen so many trailers and promos at this point. They are
They're running
starting to
together.
bleed together a little. But yeah, I mean, the thought of that, because, and this is something, I mean, really, regardless of who said it, this is something I've been thinking about over the past few days, as I've just been kind of like, I don't know, speculating with myself on like, how could anybody even oppose him at this point? Because and maybe the reason I've been thinking about this is because I'm reading Thrawn right now. But it's like the way that he thinks about things, the way that he strategizes is just so on a level unlike anybody else that I'm like, how could they even really stand up to him in any sort of real way without having any of the stuff that they had the last time? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is kind of like a big question of, I'm kind of like, yeah, what does happen? Because I really can't think of any way that they could really be a threat to him.
Yeah. And this kind of leans into what we've been talking about, and I'm not, and all kidding aside, I'm not going to bring up Heir to the Empire, but we've talked about how the reemergence of Thrawn is going, again, this is speculation, but it does feel like that is going to be the catalyst. It is the triggering point for whatever this next big event that we've been working towards for the better part of 4 years now, in real time here. But it feels like if he's coming back, to your point, and we're going to get into this on our Thrawn discussion here this weekend, but we're really going to kind of talk about the threat that he poses, because he is unlike anybody else. He is undisputedly the master tactician. We've never had a villain like him, and it's not about, power and all that stuff. It's just he's going to outthink you, he's going to outsmart you, and he's a real threat. Like I hope they do enough in this series to kind of pitch that and pose that he is truly a threat like most viewers are not aware of in a lot of ways. And if you look at his track record, he's only ever, and Jonesy, I know you kind of bring this up all the time, he's only ever really been defeated when something happens that he could not predict, which is so far out there, or it's like related to the Force in some way. What's the word that he uses? The
Jedi devilry.
Jedi devilry,
Yeah.
right? Those are the things that bite him. Otherwise, if it's like a fair fight, one-on-one, tactically, strategically fight, there's no chance. And you think about how much they've kind of pitched the New Republic as being, bozos and not really having their crap together. I mean, they're just prime for the taking as far as Thrawn coming in, right? They don't really have a cohesive force right now, and so we'll get into a lot of this again in the Thrawn conversation, because it's already in the notes, and I want to wax a little bit more there. But I guess from your perspective, Thrawn coming back, Jonesy, would you agree that we're in for some kind of a big event, and then maybe this is where this is going to lead to, this movie that that people are talking about being the first thing that comes out? Well, I'm sorry, they announced 3 movies. And one of the movies I think we kind of said was probably going to be tied to this series. I can see where it's going to be solely, or at least hyper-focused on Thrawn's threat and what he's doing in the galaxy as it returns.
Yeah, I have a feeling like by the end of this series, Thrawn is probably going to show and remind the galaxy why he's Admiral Thrawn and why he is who he is. And I think by the end of this, I mean, you're going to see major setbacks to the New Republic. I think it's going to be front and center. And I think you're going to see the resurrection of that. And we are going to feel actual concern and then maybe leave the series a little confused about, well, holy crap, like where do we go from here? Because we have this emergence of a true villain. And they've got, I mean, I think we'll actually see some sort of victory at some point here. I mean, that's where this could really go. If they really wanted to go and really lean into that. And I think and the reason why I bring that up is to your point, if you want to really sell that movie and the content that's going to come after just to get us ready for that, you need the galaxy to really be on edge, right? You've already got that tension built into it. You don't do it in the movie. You do everything leading up to it, and then you just got the spark that just ignites it all, right? And it's not igniting rebellion. It's igniting everything crumbling down around you, right? And that's what pulls everyone together. So I really think this series could be that catalyst that shows you, A, how big and bad of a villain he is, but then also how vulnerable our galaxy really is in a galaxy far, far away, in order to and show you, through their actual huge setbacks, if not defeat in some way.
Yep. The next quote I had on here, and I'll kind of take this one, but this is the one where Balin Skull says, "Power such as you've never dreamed." And I know when we talked about this originally, we kind of felt like they could be leading us astray with this quote. I forget how it was framed in the trailer, but there aren't a lot of things that I can point my finger at in Star Wars and say, this is power as you've never dreamed, especially coming out of the mouth of somebody like the Jedi or a former Jedi or somebody who is Force sensitive. That speaks volumes in terms of what they potentially could be talking about. And so I don't think it's anything that's like, Thrawn specifically. I don't think it's anything like, I don't even know. I couldn't even venture other guesses. But when I hear this, I do think a world between worlds. Like, how could that not be power like you've never seen before? The ability to go back in time here we go. I stepped into that one. The ability to go and change events from the past without calling it time travel is pretty powerful. And it's something that, we know probably will never get used in Star Wars. We hope it will never get used in Star Wars because I think it does change the fabric of space and time, literally. So, I think that's probably what he was discussing, unless there's another aspect of the Force. And again, I'm going to go to the Force because it's Baylan Skoll who's saying this. It could be another aspect of the Force. Maybe they've tapped into some new aspect. We talked about Dave Filoni as kind of the master of bringing in new versions or new aspects of the Force that we had never considered, but still staying true to what, George Lucas's vision was for the Force. But if he rolled in something new, maybe he's talking about that specifically. I hate to lean into this, but of course it could be something like the Mortis trilogy or some new aspect of the Mortis family, right? Or, some heirloom or artifact that they're going after that's kind of a MacGuffin that's still, central to the storyline. But, maybe Morgan this is me going off, put your tinfoil hats on now. But like Morgan Elsbeth is trying to find this particular artifact. Jonesy's putting his on. There it is. Morgan Elsbeth is trying to find, some kind of artifact to bring Thrawn back, but at the same time, it has the ability for like Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati to do what they want to do. Because I'm not convinced that they're all in it for the good of Thrawn or the good of Morgan Elsbeth or the good of the Empire. I think they're in it for their own gain, their own benefit. And so, they could be playing along until they get what they need in this powerful artifact, this Sith artifact, maybe. And that kind of leads into the last thing, which is, Sith Eternal. We talked, Lauren and I did a show on the Sith and kind of what their ultimate goal was, life immortal, and how that is truly the ultimate power, at least from Palpatine's perspective, and many of the Sith that throughout thousands and thousands of years of lore, that is the ultimate goal. That's what they were all trying to achieve. And so when I hear power such as you never dreamed, I think immortality. And, I don't have a lot to go on there, but they've already kind of set that precedent as being something that is desirable by those with power, and probably the ultimate power in the Force. So those are my thoughts. Jonesy, anything you want to add to that? Because again, we talked about it before, but has your perspective changed on anything there?
Not a whole lot. I think the other person you can bring into that is Palpatine, right? I mean, we talk about power like you've never seen before. I mean, Palpatine has that kind of power, and so I think there's an opportunity there. If you could start to lump in, like, how does Palpatine work back into the story overall, knowing that this is a goal of the Empire to bring him back to life, and Thrawn being an acolyte of the Emperor, for lack of a better word, very much leans into that too. So, Thrawn is a conduit. I think also you could also look at this and expand. If you just wanted to go and throw ideas against the wall, I think some of it also the Chiss ascendancy. Do they start working their way in as well in some kind of way? I kind of thinking that's probably really far fetched, but at the same time, you're just talking about total, like, absolute power. This is a group of people that just have immense skill, they have a gigantic army around them, right? And we've seen that in the books that Lauren was talking about earlier she's reading. I mean, you see this on display all the time of their military prowess. So just different ways you could go if you really wanted to go and like start pulling strings all over the place. But I'd like the idea of name dropping Palpatine and making sure we remember that this is all really going according to his design in some kind of way. And I'd love to see Thrawn still be a pawn in that, but tethered to the Emperor in some kind of way. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to the comments, and Lauren, I'm going to pose this question to you. So Gary asked the question, will we see Thrawn and Din Djarin on screen at the same time? So I don't know if he's talking about the potential movie here or even in this series, but we'll kind of talk about this just quickly. In this series, one, do you think we'll see Din Djarin, first off? And then two, let's just maybe talk about the movie since he brought it up. Do you think it's going to be somebody like Din Djarin that'll be a part of whatever thwarts Thrawn? Because, like we said, I don't think it's going to be the New Republic standing up, and the Resistance just still not there yet. So, who steps up?
Yeah, I think if there ends up coming a time where Ahsoka's having to go around and ask for volunteers to try to face Thrawn, I could definitely see Din Djarin being part of that. I almost wonder what that might look like, though. It's hard for me to like kind of fit that. I don't know. I feel like fitting his story with what he's doing now, trying to fit that into this, I don't really know how exactly that would go down. But he does seem like a pretty likely person to go to if you need help with something like this and the government's not listening to you.
Yeah. And we might as well just throw in all the Mandalorians, too, because I have a feeling if they're probably going to rally at some point, too. They've got a bone to pick with the Empire for a lot of different reasons. And the way just to kind of answer the question, too, kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, I mean, I do feel like there's going to be a scene there where we have Thrawn and you've got Mando standing there, and then right behind Mando, you've got Amara, and she's not putting up with her man being taunted by Thrawn.
I
mean, holding Bo-Katan's hand,
holding a rifle too, like her.
It
her
was
rifle
like I was really right there with you with what you were saying, and then I heard the word Omera, and my brain just kind of like glitched out, and I stopped following. I think what you meant to say was Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan, that's right. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong show notes here.
You're looking at the wrong thing.
Okay, but I've got another question for you, Lauren, because I don't think I have your perspective. I think I know where Jonesy stands on this, but there's a line in, I think this is the trailer. If not, it's the Master and Apprentice one that just came out. But Ahsoka says, just like I walked away from Sabine. And the question that I've always had is like, what happened? And again, Jonesy and I have already talked about this, but I kind of want your thoughts. Do you have any kind of thoughts in terms of or do you feel like the relationship went south at some point? And what was kind of that what drove the wedge in between them that made them separate or, because I would say Sabine almost has some kind of resentment towards Ahsoka. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's definitely, she's very standoffish. She's already kind of a standoffish person as it is, but she is very standoffish with Ahsoka, which you would not expect to be, especially with how season 4 Rebels ended. So your thoughts on what possibly could have happened there?
I can almost see the end of their relationship coming about not just as a result of one instance, but kind of just like a slow distancing, because with the way that we've seen Ahsoka before, and I know that we've talked about this on the show, like she does kind of put distance between herself and others because she's been bitten in the butt by it before, like by getting too close to people and putting those people in danger as a result. And so I could see her kind of putting a little bit of a wall up between her and Sabine taking that hard, and understandably so, given everything that they've been through. And it could just be kind of like a gradual backing away. And Sabine eventually was kind of like, this isn't fair. I don't know why you're doing this. I guess our relationship is over. And then that would kind of explain some of the resentment side of it, because I feel like resentment is something that kind of builds up over time. So, and then, for them to mend their relationship after that, it would take a lot longer than just one conversation. Yeah,
exactly. And so, Jonesy, I've got a question here that's kind of related, and this is another line that was lifted from one of the recent trailers here, but it's Ahsoka saying, sometimes we have to do what's right, regardless of our personal feelings. And I can't help but think I think she's talking to Sabine in that moment.
Right.
But the first thing that should jump to everybody's mind is her personal feelings towards Ezra versus the overall mission, really the real threat or the mission from Ahsoka's perspective, which is put an end to the Empire, put Thrawn down, ensure he never comes back. But agreed there. And is there anything you want to add to kind of what Lauren just said here?
Yeah, I think they fit hand in hand. I think you talk about the split, you can definitely see where they had different priorities. And I think this line kind of epitomizes where I'm leaning, is it's very much of saying Ahsoka trying to put the mission first, but Sabine is like, yeah, the mission's fine, but we also need to go find our family member. We need to go find, my soon-to-be boyfriend. We need to we need to go and do those things, but Ahsoka has to remind her, like, no, we've we do have a job to do. This is what it means to be a Jedi, even though I'm not a Jedi, training you to not be a Jedi. I'm so confused about like what Ahsoka actually thinks she is. But anyway, but I think, but that aspect, right? That's what comes to the forefront of saying like, we have a mission to do. But I think that's also where Ahsoka, to maybe piggyback on where Lauren was going, is that Ahsoka continues to distance herself from these relationships and trying to prioritize the mission and being disconnected from it, which was, of course, some of the hubris of the Jedi as well. Not having that attachment is a good thing from it being able to let go and make the right choice, but it also is what sacrifices, potential benefit and opportunity in your relationships, and also what you can do. And are you missing an opportunity because you are blinded by your mission and blinded by disconnecting from everything around you, to where you're actually going to be penalized for it in some way, right? And I think that's Ahsoka's character in general. It feels like in some ways, and I'm hoping the series sheds that light on it, of the scars from her history with Anakin, and that distancing has just become such a continuous thing that it's really eroded her ability in order to connect with other people, especially longer term. And that's why she's not connecting with Luke, or that's why she's not connecting with him in a more consistent way, right? Because he clearly wants her to stay for dinner, but she's not having it.
Yeah. She's like, no, dude, I don't know you that way yet. Okay, here's a fun question that I have that came up recently. This was and we'd heard this line already, right? It's a line from Hera that says, once a rebel, always a rebel. On the surface, didn't think too much of it. As I was putting the show notes together, I thought, maybe. What if she's talking about somebody that we've not seen on screen? Like someone has done something, and it's not Ahsoka, it's not Sabine, it's not herself, Hera, Chopper, right? But maybe it's another character. And so I kind of wove this into the question of like, if she was talking about anybody else, and it doesn't we don't even have to frame the question or the answers on this question specifically, but it goes to the question about who would you want to see from the Rebels cast, or which rebel? And that's a really broad term in terms of like the number of characters that could fit into the moniker of rebel. But what rebel could she be talking about? And if not that, what rebels do you want to see that pop up? And if you could try to keep it to like the episode, season 4, or the Rebel series, that's probably more in line with what I would expect. But Jonesy, I'll kick it off to you first. Go ahead and give us your like wannabe cameos or reappearances, and we all know what you're going to say.
What do you mean? I'm not going to say Hondo. I'm not as predictable as you with hair to the Empire.
Hair to the Empire.
There's a part of me from the Ghost crew, it would be Zeb. But I think you brought this up perfectly. I think when you think about the Rebel series, like who else was really integrated with all of this? Mm-hmm. And I had to think really hard about this, and I did it all day today, like in the back of my brain. And I'm like, what if Ryder comes back? Like, I mean, he was very much invested in Lothal, and he was very much there with Ezra, and it was very present throughout much of that series, right? He was kind of one of the constants with boots on the ground.
Well, he was reinstated as governor too at the very end of season 4.
Exactly.
Rebels.
So we know they're on Lothal for a little while. So is that something? Now the scenes don't quite line up, at least for where we see it with Hera, but you never know. So I'm really kind of leaning Zeb, but I was trying to think of somebody that maybe wasn't obvious, and so I just picked Ryder out of nowhere.
Well, and I think so. I like the idea, and I think if we saw him, it probably would be a smaller cameo appearance kind of thing, similar to what we would expect with Mon Mothma, where he's on there, he reestablishes himself and assures us that Lothal is still okay, and they're doing just fine kind of thing. But think about this. What if Clancy Brown played him? Because Clancy Brown did the voice. Is Clancy Brown, what does he look like? Is he in good health? I don't even know. I haven't seen him physically on anything in a while. He's done a lot of voiceovers, and he does a lot of great voiceover work. And he's awesome as Ryder, but I would love to see Clancy Brown like in that role. I think that'd be a great cameo. So
yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Loving the idea there. Lauren, what about you? And Jonesy, I can come back to you if you got otherwise. And I've got a list here of some ones. If you scroll down a little bit, guys, on the notes here of just some folks that I threw out as potential cameos, appearances, and some of these, I think almost all of them are actually Rebels. But Lauren, what about you? Anybody that comes to mind when you think of Rebels that you'd like to see?
Well, Rebels I'd like to see, or who I think Hera's talking about?
Both. Either one or both, yeah.
Okay, so I felt like Hera could have been talking about Ezra too. Like if they're kind of talking about what he may be doing, where he might be, what might be his situation, I could see Hera referring to, I mean, we do know this, at least we have this information about him.
Like still giving Thrawn hell, even though they're out in the middle of nowhere. He's still a thorn in his side kind of thing.
Or, at least he's planning something maybe, or,
Yeah.
But that's kind of, that's pretty open-ended. It really could be about a lot of people. But, other than, outside of the Rebels crew, maybe she's talking about Luke, who I'm also hoping to see. So, it could be, I feel like the possibilities are endless.
I'll go through the list here in a little bit. A little bit is happening right now. Okay, so Zeb, I'm gonna say he's gonna be in the series. Like I can't.
Why would you bring everybody? You bring everybody else back, but not Zeb, right?
Right, exactly. Right. I'll even throw in what's his name, Callus in there as well. Like I can't see why. They did such a good job of establishing him as a good guy, and he was buddy with Zeb there. Maybe he's still out. Over there, what's the planet that they reestablished? I forget the name now, but maybe he's there. But I'd love to see a live action version of him show up. And think about that in the context of if she's talking about somebody like Callus, like saying once a rebel, always a rebel. That's a big turnaround from where he started in season 1 of Rebels. So that would be kind of cool.
Are you talking
my
about
personal favorite?
Lyrasan,
yeah.
Okay.
My personal favorite though is AP5. I don't think they're talking about him. I can't
only if he sings a song.
Only if he sings a song, or only if he's doing inventory of some sort, right? That's probably him being as rebellious as AP5 will get. But joking aside, I would like to see him as well, and that seems like a super easy kind of voiceover. Steve Stanford? What's his name? Dang it! Now I'm drawing a blank on that guy's name too. Stanton. Steve Stanton did the voice for AP5, so that seems like a real easy fix. You just bring in the droid and throw Steve Stanton behind a mic, and you've got AP5 back on there. All right, Hondo Anaka, why are you not going to bring him up? What if they're talking about?
I was waiting for you to do it because you're going to do the great stuff. You're finally going to have a great idea. I was like, Albert, that's a fantastic idea. We should bring Hondo back, and Melch too.
And Melch
they do fly.
Maybe they were talking about Melch when she says "once a rebel, always a rebel." I don't know how we get there.
That would be hilarious. And then I want to hear, they do fly.
Yeah, I don't know that Hondo fits rebel. Like I think he is, right? Don't get me wrong, but he's got other qualities and traits that put him in line with maybe different titles.
What would be
more ambiguous?
Yeah, he goes with whichever way the credits flow. Right?
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Now, what would be really cool though is if this series does lead into like a skeleton crew, like if they would bring Hondo, because that would make a little more sense, right? If they wanted to give Hondo a moment, but then also kind of push him towards skeleton crew. That would be a pretty cool cameo way to do that, I think. He probably gets in the way of the story a little bit too much here, especially without Ezra. Hondo is just so connected with Ezra. It would be difficult unless they recruited Hondo to kind of go and help out. But I'm sorry, man. Just give me all the Jim Cummings. He better do the voice because there's no one else that can do Hondo.
Maybe Hondo knows where Ezra is.
Ooh.
That would be fun.
That would be hilarious.
I like this lady. We need to bring her on the show more often.
That would be pretty funny. And he's known for a while and has never told anybody. That's right in character for him too.
I think I could be convinced to come up with a deal.
Yeah. Let's see. Gary says Wedge. We're talking about Rebels here. Yeah. Rob said Omega, not Rebels, but why not? Yeah. Well, we haven't talked about Omega, and we speculated during the Omega series that knowing Filoni, she probably is still around somewhere doing something. She may not be as high profile. She's probably laying low, I would expect at this time frame, but
we have no idea. Yeah,
we have no idea. That's a good question. Let's see. Okay, so Rex, I could see him as that'd be a fun title for Rex to have, and I think an earned title, given that he served in the Battle of Endor, right? So, for all intents and purposes, he's been a lot of different things, but later in his career, he finally, and you could argue he was a rebel during seasons, 2 and 3 and 4, right? But
quick poll: Rex is in, yes or no? No in betweens, yes or no? Rex is in the show. What do you think?
I say he's in there, and I think it's Tamura Morrison. Like I don't see why they wouldn't do it. Now, how he plays into it, I have no idea. I can't see him being kind of front and center and being a big piece of all of this. But could he have known Baylan Skoll? Could there be a relationship there?
Turning into a reunion episode of like Friends or something like that.
Well, it's season 5 of Rebels. That's all it is. I mean, come on, let's just be real here. But
that's kind of how they ended Rebels, though, was with everybody there.
But I'd like to see like old Rex fighting old Balin Skull, like two curmudgeons from the Clone Wars era, still, jabbing at each other and hating each other for different reasons, I guess. But yeah, Rex I think is going to be in it. Jason Syndulla. So here's the scenario: Jason has done something. He's gotten himself in trouble yet again. And the line is uttered, once a rebel, always a rebel. And they're kind of poking fun, or Hera's poking fun at herself, or maybe the legacy of Kanan, or I don't know. That'd be a fun little way to introduce him.
That'd be cute, yeah.
No,
Jonesy?
I want him firing a gun on the ghost.
You want to get him on that 50 caliber. He needs to be shooting stuff.
That's right.
All right, let's talk about Luke Skywalker. Because I just, man, in every scenario, like I've already done the Doctor Strange thing where I went back into the future and I played out every infinite possibility. And I can't see where Luke Skywalker doesn't play into in some way the events that are about to happen. Yeah, I mean, you how do you bring in Thrawn as the ultimate threat to the galaxy? He's resurfaced, and yet Luke, in his prime, Luke Skywalker from Mandalorian, Luke Skywalker, how is he not involved? I don't see it. I'm not saying he's in that series, okay? I'm going to be clear. But I would love to see him in there, kind of what Lauren said, right? Maybe he's at the very end. Maybe he's a way to kind of help spearhead the next set of events or this next chapter that we're leading into before we get to the big main show kind of thing with the movies. But I just can't see a Luke Skywalker standing idle there while everything else is going on and not having some kind of an impact or an influence into what's happening. I mean, he's got to be like...
I like Gary's comment, Luke or Luke.
Right. I don't know. What do you guys think? I know, Lauren, you said you want to see him, but any chance that do you think we're going to get a lot of him in this series, or at least in the whatever the big battle is going to be here?
Well, in that first trailer, Ahsoka did drop the heir to the Empire word, and I feel like if you're going to say that word, Luke has to be involved in some way. So, and I know that she's just saying the word, and it's probably not strictly that story, much to Albert's disappointment, but I feel like the fact that it's even associated with that in any sort of way, it would be weird to have that and for Luke to not be a part of that story. So I feel like he's going to play into it in some way. Maybe he won't be front and center because it is supposed to be Ahsoka's story, but maybe kind of like what you were just saying. Maybe he comes in a little at the end. Maybe he's kind of in and out, but I feel like we're going to see him in some way.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jonesy?
I won't say 0%, but I'll say 1% chance. I don't want Luke Skywalker in this series, to be honest with you. I want it to be about Ahsoka and Anakin and then Sabine and what's going on in the galaxy. I think Luke is preoccupied, though, with the Jedi Temple, starting a new Jedi Order, whatever it is. I think he's preoccupied with those things. So is there a threat that's threatening the galaxy? Maybe, yes, but there's also people out there taking care of it and trying to address it. So is there a need for Luke to get involved yet? And I think the answer right now is probably no. I think it's almost like the New Republic's perspective of things, of they don't feel like there's something enough out there to really get involved yet. So does Luke have the same blinders on, or is he really so focused on this? So, yeah, I'm feeling things. There's a slight disturbance, but I also know Ahsoka is out there. I know what Ahsoka's trying to do. I'm going to respect her ability to do it. She'll call me if she needs something really badly. But I'm focusing on the Jedi aspect of things right now. The best thing I can do from Luke Skywalker, of me, Luke Skywalker, is to bring the Jedi back so that we can help with these types of things. But I have to be able to focus on that. So I think Luke is a no on this series.
Do you think he's looking at this as potentially not being as big of a threat because he just hasn't been aware of Thrawn, or not truly understanding his how capable Thrawn is? Because he had a conversation with Anakin.
Yeah, I mean, with Thrawn, he probably doesn't know a whole lot about him. He didn't face him. He didn't encounter him, right? I mean, there is no Heir to the Empire series that they've crossed paths or anything. And again, I think it's more about what does Luke value? What does Luke think the most important is on the long game? And yeah, he'll take side adventures, kind of like we saw Shadows of the Sith and things like that. But they were all within a certain context of the Jedi Order, right, or solving a specific Jedi type of problem, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where his focus is at, and I'm totally fine with that. I think that's actually okay, and it's not belittling Luke in any kind of way. I think it's also letting Ahsoka shine. We've talked about this. When Luke Skywalker comes on screen, who do you want to see? You want to see Luke Skywalker. Now, him and Ahsoka doing cool stuff together would be pretty neat, but who's more important to Ahsoka? Is it Luke or is it Anakin?
Yeah.
I'd rather have Anakin. It seems like we'll get that part. So But I think Luke, I think he's just got other things to do on the longer game with that in mind.
Yeah, and to be fair, like going back to the Heir to the Empire series, you're right. I mean, Thrawn was out there; he was a threat, but the Empire was such in disarray that they were kind of just dealing with them as these little conflicts and skirmishes came up, but never really amassed to much. It wasn't until Thrawn brought Luke into the battle. Like, I mean, Thrawn went to him and threatened his family essentially to finally bring him into the conflict, right? And at that point, Luke was all in, right? It wasn't like he was out searching for Thrawn. He heard about this Thrawn and went actively looking for him. It was quite the opposite. And I can see where the same is happening here, where to Ahsoka and the Rebels crew, Thrawn's a huge threat, like the biggest threat, and they totally get it. They understand. But for Luke, probably not. He doesn't really have that context, and unless Ahsoka's had that conversation with him, or more canonically, if Anakin Skywalker and Luke conversed as a Force ghost, maybe he's able to provide some context because he worked with him directly, during the Clone Wars. He knows what he's capable of doing. We just don't know what that relationship is like between Luke and Anakin at this point.
Yeah, and people in the chat are kind of jumping ahead. They must have read our show notes.
They read the show notes.
Yeah, I threw this name in there earlier today. I was like, how can we talk about Luke but not bring Leia in, right? You have the connection with Rebels. She was in Rebels. They know who she is. She's got such, like with Bloodline, the stories are so similar with the New Republic perspective. We'd have to do de-aging, or we'd have to do digital animation, not de-aging, just complete digital animation. It all exists. So if Luke Skywalker can exist, so can Princess Leia at this, or General Leia, whatever she might be at this stage. So what do you think about Leia coming onto screen and being a part of this from the New Republic perspective?
Yeah, Lauren, what do you think about that?
I would love to see that, especially because what was it?
He asked me, but I was redirecting. You go first on that one.
Okay.
She's the only opinion I care about right now anyway.
Yeah, you don't
I like
care what
her
I
better.
think. Yeah, go ahead.
You made me lose my train of thought over there with your gestures.
Sorry.
No, but I mean, I would love to see that, especially because what we saw in the trailer when, we have some of the leaders of the New Republic part of this meeting. I would love to see Leia as part of that. So it makes sense to me that she would be involved in some way, especially when Hera's trying to convince them that there is a threat. Leia seems like a likely person that Hera would go to, given Leia's track record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you look at you needing a partner in some of this, and Leia already feels the same way. She's seeing the same types of things happening. Her contacts, her circles are starting to show her all of that. And I can't remember exactly where Bloodline falls exactly in the timeline. Lauren, do you remember that? Like what year that's roughly in?
I can't remember what year, but I'm pretty sure that it is after this series, because I know that Leia is a little bit older in Bloodline than she would be in this series. So, but I could see this being kind of like one of the things that leads to Leia becoming jaded, which is kind of where we see her at the beginning of Bloodline.
Yeah. The lack of support, the lack of urgency on the behalf of the New Republic, that could rear its ugly head really quick and manifest very quickly here, given Thrawn's threat, and that could start off what we would see from the Resistance later down the road here.
Oh, well, okay, you're right. Yeah, 25 years after Return of the Jedi and 6 years before The Force Awakens. So,
yeah,
well after
beyond
our events here. But could this be something that starts to give her, like you talk about cameos, that this is her first hint that there was something else going on in the galaxy, and she's not put it together quite yet? Would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
This is the last one. We're kind of long on time already. We expected that, but I threw Bendu in here because he is a character that, I mean, his relationship was more established with Kanan than anybody else. I think we talked about how Dave Filoni had drew some sketches after Rebels of the encounter or the meeting between Ahsoka and the Bendu. So they have met, and we don't know what kind of relationship was nurtured or started in there. But I think if the Bendu is around, it would have to be somebody like Ahsoka who's reaching out to him. I don't know how he would play into all of this. Honestly, he seems like more of a guidance, kind of like a Mr. Miyagi or some ancient lore person, or what's I'm trying to think of the hero's journey, the official title of that elder, right? But I can see where maybe if they were going to bring him in here, it's somebody that she consoles with and goes to for advice and consultation on events and what to do and that kind of thing. And who better, honestly, given where Ahsoka is? I mean, it feels like a natural fit. Like the Bendu would be somebody that would kind of lead her in the same direction. They would probably vibe pretty well together, I think.
I've never considered the Bendu much of a guide, to be totally honest with you. He just seems to be ambiguous. He's the one in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. He's not on anybody's side. I would actually like him.
Teach.
Yeah, he does teach in his own way.
He did side with the rebels at the end.
No, he didn't. He fried everybody. It's just that the Empire was much more prevalent. He was frying everybody.
Yeah.
I guess that's up for debate, I guess.
But maybe Thrawn could come back and get his ultimate revenge on the Bendu.
Well, he's probably got a bone to pick, I would expect, since he humiliated him there on the at one point there at the very end. Ray Sloan, oh my goodness, oh boy, yeah. We could do a whole show on a lot of these characters, but yeah, Ray Sloan's another character who is around, and she is an Imperial, but not necessarily one of the bad guys. It's complicated. You got to read the series to pick up on that one, but she could be an interesting character to weave into it. I can see maybe a Ray Sloan being brought into the movies, maybe not in this series, but I can see her being brought into like some movie or maybe a series further down the road if they're going to lean into some of the where the Empire is and the remnants of them, because she is a pretty big character there.
Yeah, Stephanie's got my back. He didn't pick sides. Kanan just poked the bear and ran. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah, I guess that's true, because he was like, "Get ready, something's coming." I don't know what it is, but everybody hold on to your butts, because he took them off. Okay, let's move on here. All right, last couple of questions here. Who's going to die? Let's do Death Watch, not the clan, right? Who's going to die? Lauren, you got any predictions?
I think no one is going to die.
Okay, and that's probably a fair guess.
Yeah.
No, we've talked about this many times, and we speculate everybody, and no one dies the first season, but eventually someone does. But
I think any of these we could see either Baylan Skoll or Shin Hati die, but any of our main Rebels people, none of them are dying.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. I think maybe some of the villains might, but for one of the Rebels to die, although maybe Lauren, if one did die, who would it actually be?
If a rebel had to die, which one?
If a rebel had to die,
which one do I think it would be?
Yeah, which one makes sense too?
Hera.
See, I think that too, and then I think about Jason, and I just don't know if they would actually do it. But Hera would be my pick too.
I don't think they're actually going to do it, but I think if they had to, that's who would go. But I think she's safe, at least for this season.
I was going to say Hera, maybe even a Rex. Like, his story has to be coming to an end here very soon, I would imagine. I mean, this dude's old. He's been around since the Clone Wars. He probably wants to just be put down at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
Maybe those blow the ghost up.
Oh, come on.
True Razor Crest moment.
That's not the Razor
moment.
Crest. You shut your mouth.
We'll call it the Razor Ghost. The Razor
They can't
Ghost
do
moment.
that twice.
Yeah.
The Razor Crest and the Ghost.
The Razor Ghost.
The Razor Ghost. Jonesy, what about you? Anybody?
No, I kind of agree with Lauren. I just don't
Nobody?
think, outside of the villain, I just don't think they have I don't think they got the stones to do it, to be honest with you, just to be kind of crass about it. I just don't think that makes sense. And again, they know that they're going to do more content later on. But I think it would be meaningful if someone died.
I think so too.
I think.
It always raises,
to your
the
point,
stakes.
that closure on somebody. Yeah, it raises the stakes. And again, you no one's immune to this, right? And if you actually want someone to be a threat, kind of like Kanan, you have to take someone away.
Man, they're like poking the bear and running. Look at that.
Hondo will never die, Gary.
See?
That's 2 strikes against you, my friend.
Get ready. Hold on. I don't know what's going to happen. Jonesy's about to fire lightning in the sky here.
Man, I will not be the one in the middle.
Any thoughts around whether or not this weaves into Skeleton Crew? I think is it safe to say we all agree that it does? I don't think we have enough to discuss or talk about how it does, but does anybody have a different opinion that it's not going to lean on into Skeleton Crew in some way?
I think it has to lean on it at some point, because that seems to be the custom with how they arrange the shows. There's always got to be a little tie-in somewhere, so it's got to have it somewhere.
Mm-hmm. You, Jonesy? You.
Sorry, I got distracted because Gary said I have an unhealthy adoration for that knucklehead. I respectfully disagree.
Some characters are super lovable and they capture our hearts.
Yeah, even if they're knuckle dragging pirates.
And they're hilarious. Yeah.
They're funny.
What was the question?
Yeah, that's another way.
Will this tie into Skeleton Crew? Yeah, I think there's got to be some connection to it, especially since that's the next piece of content we have. I think there has to be some sort of connection to it. Although I will say this though, does it have to? No, because we already have the connection with the Mandalorian. So we've already been introduced to the pirate. I forgot what's his face. He escapes from the Pirate King's band of merry rebels or whatever. But so I don't think it has to, but I think it would be nice if it did. So you have some sort of connected tissue that's just not a leaving off the series at the end and going to Skeleton Crew. I hope there's something a little more meaningful than that.
Yeah.
But again, given the stakes of what they got to do here, that's really, my expectations are low because I think that would be kind of tough to do, to be honest with you. Unless you brought in a Hondo. Take that, Gary.
Stop. That's not how they're going to do that. I'm with you too. Like, I feel like they do
Why
need
not?
to do it. I'm not answering that. I feel like they need to do it.
Getting argumentative now.
I know. That's what I said. You set them off. Now I've lost my train of thought. Good grief. This whole show is going down the hell in a handbasket. So I think they do need to do something, but it's not like, I don't think the success of the Skeleton Crew nor the future of wherever they're going is predicated on it. You know what I mean?
It's not
like,
critical, yeah.
It's not critical. It's a nice to have, and it's probably an Easter egg at most, right? But I don't think we're going to get, appearances or any of that stuff. Like, it's just too early for it to happen, I guess. Jonesy, this is strictly for you because I know you've brought her up many times already, and I'll guess more than anything, I kind of want to know if your perspective or opinion has changed. But at one point, you were talking about how Balin Skoll and Shin Hati, the Norse origins of their names, mean with Balin, it's the wolf that chases the sun, and we kind of equate that to Ashla, right?
Right.
And Hati is the name of the wolf that chases the moon, or Bogan, if you want to put it in Star Wars terms. So, do you think Filoni is really going to go down this course of trying to use more or play that up more, or do you think it's just kind of a cool little nice Easter egg reference because he's obsessed with wolves?
Yeah, to paraphrase Gary, it's this unhealthy obsession with wolves that's really driving all of this.
Dragging wolf or knucklehead wolves.
Knucklehead wolf. Well, no, I would never call them that. But no, I think it's really cool symbology, right? Or is that the right it's symbolism, right? I like the idea of like you just have it, and this is why these two characters fit together, and they're chasing it. So I think it really fits, and of course that's his interest. So I think that's really cool to bring that to light. It doesn't have to do anything on screen. Now, what I like about it though is if you do bring in a world between worlds, I think there's an interesting component of that. Can that be worked in to be something special between these two characters? And that's why their pairing is so unique and so important in order for it to be the two of them, right? Not just master and apprentice and that type of thing, but there is some other special connection, much like what Kanan and Ezra had, but from the other side of things. I think would be really kind of a cool, this is a kind of cool switcheroo. We put things on its head a little bit. I think that would be neat.
Yeah. Okay, next question. I'm going to throw this to you, Lauren, and this is, why have we not seen the ghost anywhere? And somebody updated the notes and says it's parked next to the Falcon on Jakku. Who's a smart?
Jonesy.
I don't know who would say something like that.
Shirk. But where is the ghost? Why haven't we seen it?
I don't know why we haven't seen it, but we've seen the Phantom.
Yep.
So
Can't be that far.
Yeah, it can't be that far away. I don't think it means anything that we haven't seen it. I think it's got to be around there somewhere.
Yeah, I think they're saving
Jakku.
it. It's not on Jakku.
But everyone wants to go back to Jakku.
Everybody wants to go back to Jakku. I think they're saving it. I mean, honestly, they're probably waiting for that 1 millionth HasLab thing, and they're going to announce it or something. But I think, honestly, it's for those of us that are fans of the series, that is the sixth member or the eighth member, I guess, at this point of the Ghost Crew. It's the Ghost ship itself, and you got it. For me, it feels like they got to do a big reveal. Like at some point, this thing's going to swoop in like the Falcon, save the day, and everybody's going to have that great moment. You got to give it the limelight. You got to give it the spotlight in this series. It's so iconic, and that's the only reason they haven't shown it yet. I think he's saving that, and that's probably just pure Filoni at this point, really wishing that into existence. So, all right, we're getting into lightning round here. World Between Worlds. Again, we already did a show on this, so I don't need a whole lot of context, but I'll start with you, Lauren, because I think I know where Jonesy sits. World Between Worlds, do you think we're going to see it?
Yes.
Jonesy?
Yes.
Thumbs up. I think so too. I don't know.
Even if it's light, I think we'll see it. But I think we're actually going to get it.
I think so too.
We'll see it.
I think so too. I hope so, because we'll look like fools haven't done a full up. No, I'm kidding. We were wanting to talk about World Between Worlds for years, literally, and we finally had a good opportunity to do so. Anakin, We've talked a little bit about this already, but how much is enough Anakin for you, Lauren, in the context of the series, not in your personal life?
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I think definitely gonna see Anakin. Definitely gonna have flashbacks. Hopefully, Force Ghost. We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. Jonesy?
I'm hoping we see Force Spirit. I don't know about flashbacks. I mean, we'll probably see flashbacks because we can't seem to escape it. We saw it with Obi-Wan Kenobi, so why wouldn't they do it again? Again, I think we have to see Hayden Christensen on screen somewhere. So we will see him. It won't just be a voiceover. We will see him because I think why else would you bring him in? I mean, the voice is important, but seeing the character, I think would be something special. But again, that's where a World Between Worlds can come in. If you want flashbacks, you just see these different phases of their lives too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think if we get the World Between Worlds, I think we're getting Anakin. I think I talked about this weeks, if not months ago. At this point, it just feels like that's where Ahsoka is probably going to have the opportunity to kind of look back, especially if she's thinking about her master and she doesn't have that relationship or can't commune with him as a Force ghost. However, I think what's probably more meaningful and what I would really, really love, and I in my heart of hearts feel like Filoni as a writer would write this in because I think it's the right thing to do, and from a purely fan perspective, give us freaking Force Ghost Anakin. Like, how incredible would it be to see Hayden Christensen sitting there having a truly meaningful, maybe deep, thoughtful conversation on the Force and what it means to be a Jedi and his perspectives and what he's learned having been, a Force ghost now and potentially talking to other people and stuff. Like, it just, that's so ripe and rich with potential for Star Wars lore, for the Force, for Jedi, the afterlife, and passing that knowledge on to Ahsoka, and then just reestablishing that bond between master and apprentice doesn't die after death. Like, I'd love to, we see it already we've seen it with Qui-Gon Jinn and Kenobi, and I'd love to see that continue on, have that be their kind of relationship. Even if we never get the Luke and Anakin Skywalker one, I think it's more important that we get Ahsoka and Anakin still talking all these years later. That's going to be a huge moment if they do it. So I really hope they do.
Let me ask you all a question. This isn't in the notes at all. We've talked about Ahsoka in A World Between Worlds. Any chance that Sabine goes into the World Between Worlds?
Well,
because it's a different dynamic too with Ezra, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I could see her motivation to do it, because if you're wanted to find out where Ezra is, it's kind of a quick, cheap and dirty way to go find it. But like we said, when we were talking about how do you gain access to the World Between Worlds, I don't know, at least in my head, I think I landed on someone has to kind of be very in tune with the Force. It's something that, you've got to go find, and it feels like it's exclusive to Force sensitive, potentially Jedi only, or really powerful Jedi maybe. The Lothal Temple was kind of an exception because it was there and Ezra was connected and had that bond and the affinity they all kind of did to Lothal. But it just feels so far removed from somebody like Sabine to find it on her own, unless Ahsoka found it for her. But then you still have the question of, like, how does she open the gate? And would Ahsoka let her go into the gate? That's another question too. I can't see Ahsoka being okay, knowing that Sabine consciously went into there and wanted to go see things. It doesn't line up.
Sabine has the Force and is a Jedi now.
Well, and that's, yeah, again, that's what I said. If she's not, now if she's a Force sensitive and she's using the Force, I think that gate, no pun intended, opens up a little bit more for me. But I don't know. Lauren, do you have a different opinion?
I don't think she uses the World Between Worlds. I don't think just anybody should use it. I mean, at least Ahsoka has some experience with it. So.
It definitely means more for Ahsoka. It doesn't drive anything, I think, with Sabine. It was just interesting. We always default to Ahsoka, and I just thought, what about Sabine? Like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that she would have things that she would want. I mean, like, I could see her wanting to, like, address some business with it, but I think that it's just too dangerous because at least Ahsoka has interacted with it before. She's not like a complete first timer, but Sabine would be. So, yeah. I don't know. I could see that being a little trickier.
Yeah, I mean, she was there when he opened it up, and she was talking to what was that guy, that scholar guy?
Yeah,
You know,
the
they were-
minister. Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
minister, when they were
Sure.
kind of talking back and forth about it.
I guess I mean like actually going in and like walking around.
Yeah,
and, like,
firsthand
looking at
experience.
the-
I've been in
yeah.
it. I know how to get it, navigate
Yeah.
through it. Yeah, she doesn't have that, so that kind of puts her at a disadvantage, I think. All right, so the last question before we get to our Razor Crest moment is how will the season end? And I'll kind of reiterate what I talked about just a few days ago because I don't think anything's really changed for me. I kind of foresee this show leaving us, of course, on a big cliffhanger, which I would hope they do. Like, as much as I hate that, it just feels like we're starting to get into this larger narrative, and you almost kind of have to have that to kind of daisy chain and unfortunately lead people by the nose. I know that probably sounds bad, but I kind of like that. I think there's an opportunity there for good storytelling when it works, and I think this is an opportunity to make it work. I think we are probably going to end with both Thrawn and Ezra being found. I don't think it's going to go well for the rebels, though. I have a feeling because and I think, Jonesy, you brought it up too more explicitly in one of the recent episodes, is you've got to set Thrawn up as the bad guy. It's not enough for him just to appear and then, we just have to take it at heart, face value that he's a threat. We got to have that runway for him to actually establish himself as the baddie now that he has returned. And so to that end, I think Thrawn will probably be discovered first. He'll probably appear. He probably maybe even establishes himself in some small way, maybe small. We're thinking small, but it could turn out to be larger. But at the very end of the series, this season, he establishes himself, and the rebels are kind of hanging on to threads really at this point, and kind of caught flat-footed about what the heck are we going to do, because we thought we had this in the bag. We thought we were going to get to Ezra first, and now Thrawn's here. He's here. And he is the real threat. I think that somewhere along in that realm, in that ball park, is where we're going to end the series. And that's probably enough for me too. Like, I feel like it'll be mission accomplished. We got everything we wanted. We got the characters back. We know that there's a new threat, and it's really leaving it all up to, the next series, whatever that may be, whether it be Mando or the movie, or who knows where they go at this point. So that's my thoughts. Jonesy, what do you got? Where do you think the series goes? Where do you think it ends?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's probably pretty realistic. I think I'll go back and thought about some of the battles in Rebels, especially the first battle of Lothal, right? They tried and they just failed miserably. And I got stuck on that. And so I really do believe that when we leave this series, it kind of feels like we're going to be on the brink of war. We have a lot of doubt about the stability of the New Republic and that things are falling apart, even if maybe they don't know quite yet. But we're going to have a lot of setbacks. And I'm with you. I think that's kind of the cliffhanger, if you will, is this unknown about what is next for the New Republic, because they have something really bad has happened. Thrawn is back, and he has had a successful campaign in some way. And so I think we're going to have kind of that defeat, right? And that ambiguous, we're not really sure what's happening next, and how long do we have to wait to resolve that? And I'm a little uneasy about leaving off on that kind of cliffhanger, but I also think it makes a lot of sense. And it really does feel very Rebel-esque in that kind of way of some of the major defeats that we saw. And we know that they're capable of writing that type of material, and that they're okay with going down that path. I think it becomes much more plausible and very realistic. And I think actually very compelling from a TV standpoint, or from from an entertainment standpoint of, wow, yeah, the stakes are real. Maybe we did lose someone along the way, and we've got to dig our way out of a hole. But how the heck are we going to do that? Because we brought back our chosen one in Ezra, and we weren't as successful, right? So I think we leave off kind of in that kind of negative headspace of, from the hope we had maybe when Ezra was found and brought in to try to combat some of the stuff.
Yeah. So, Lauren, same question for you, but I'm going to pose it just slightly differently. And I don't know how far you've read into the Thrawn series. I know you're doing a reread on some of those, and maybe a first-time read on some of the other books from Legends. But Thrawn, when he was out doing what he was doing for the Emperor, he was basically creating a fleet. It was all part of the big contingency plan. And we've talked about on this show many times the Katana fleet, right? But if because he's got to have Thrawn, yes, is a threat in and of itself, but the resources the Empire has right now could be potentially limited, although we don't really get that sense from what's happening with Moff Gideon and the other people that are part of that little circle of, what they call the Shadow Council or whatever it was, right?
Right.
But if we ended this series and we saw a massive fleet of Star Destroyers out there, and knowing not only Thrawn's back, but that entire fleet comes out of hyperspace, the right now, the current state of the resistance, well, they're not even a resistance yet, but the current state of the New Republic, they don't have the resources nor the skills and competency aside to contend with that. Would that be enough for you to feel like, or is it just simply enough that Thrawn comes back? And then, of course, the primary question is, how do you feel like the series is going to end?
Yeah, I mean, like, if we see the type of, the massive scale of resources that Thrawn has, I feel like that's a very easy way to visually convey this guy is a threat, like, immediately. I mean, you could do that in a very little amount of time. So that seems like an effective storytelling tool to use, to have a visual with that. And especially if we're thinking with Mando Season 3 with all of those TIE fighters that we saw when Din and Bo-Katan were kind of having a hard time against all of them. I mean, those TIE fighters, they've got the resources somewhere. And I feel like that's just the first sign of that. So the way that I think it'll end, though, is I expect a cliffhanger, which cliffhangers sometimes drive me crazy. But I agree that I feel like they are setting the stage. They're kind of planting some seeds that I think are going to take a long time to actually come to fruition. So I don't know if we're going to see very many things tied up in this season, for better or worse, but yeah, cliffhanger.
Yep. All right, the moment no one's been waiting for. Let's talk about our Razor Crest moments. And again, for anybody that doesn't know, this is our prediction that is so wildly unpredictable that we predicted it. So anything goes here.
Albert, kick us off then. You got to kick us off. You don't get to leave very often. Yeah.
You did this to me last time, and I was fine with it. But here's the thing, and I was talking to Lauren about this too. Like, we don't know a lot about this series, so it's not like we're coming into season 2 of Mando and predicting things, or any of the seasons, right? So it's really difficult to kind of predict anything crazy or wildly out there. The one thing I had, and I totally ignored it when it came up in the chat, because you probably noticed my pupils dilate, but I actually had on here that, and it's not a huge Razor Crest moment, but going back to the idea of who dies, like, I feel like Rex is kind of a natural decision. I don't know that I would be shocked if Rex died, but I had this idea that Huyang would die at some point in the series, and die maybe a death that was like, a very honorable death, or saving the group in some ways. Because he's been around for thousands of years at this point, right? He's been around for a very, very long, or hundreds, if not thousands of years. He's been around since even like Yoda, I think, was young, if I'm not mistaken, right? Canonically. But so my moment was really just Huyang dying and passing, but going down in kind of a way that was significant. The only problem that I have with that one, or the only reason I poke holes in it, is he is a character that, for a lot of people, they're like, who the heck is this droid on here? We've never even seen him before.
Right.
Even in Clone Wars, I mean, he was in a couple of episodes here and there and that kind of thing, and they establish him, and he has a fan following. A lot of people like this character. I mean, you've got, what's his name behind the voice actor here?
David Tennant.
Yep. Yeah, David Tennant. So you've got a great person doing that. But I would love to see something like that go. The only other thing that I had was that we do get someone like a Luke, like a Leia, like a Han, like a Chewbacca, somebody from the original trilogy appear and actually play a significant role. Not a cameo, but something that one of these characters coming in, and they are kind of in the next couple of new series, whatever it is. And Luke is the one that jumps to mind the most, but kind of for the reasons we've already discussed, I don't see that happening. I think you're right. I think he's probably going to take a back seat, at least for now. But, it could be like a Leia. I mean, how crazy or how cool would it be to see that Leia is now part of the series, or they bring somebody back like Lando, who already has an established history with the Rebels crew. We don't really know what he's doing, I guess, at this point. We had the Shadow of the Sith, but that takes place, further out. So I don't know. It could be one of these. I'd love to see an original cast member be reintroduced into the mix of whatever is to come over the next 3 to 5 years, including some of the movies. So there you go. I'm
failing to pick the Razor Crest moment out of all of that. Can you re-summarize for me?
It's Huyang dying as he takes Thrawn out. There you go. Is that enough for you? All right. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
I was about to say, it won't take much to beat that, Lauren. So
I'll be vulnerable. So, okay.
That's all we do on this show.
My Razor Crest moment is, I think we're going to see Doom the Wolf in live action. Oh. And the reason I think that is because I feel like at the end of season 4, it was left kind of open-ended that there's a chance that he might appear again. I feel like he was kind of going over to the other side for a time, but I felt like maybe there's still kind of a chance of if they need him, if they need guidance, he could come back. So I think we'll see him.
And voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr. again, which would be cool.
He might not. I almost wonder if we might not hear his voice though, because I know that Freddie Prinze Jr. said
he won't do it.
He said he wouldn't do it.
Hey,
man, but
understandable.
He wouldn't do Kanan, at the very least. But
yeah.
Well, he won't do 250,000, but he'll do 5 million.
Okay, no, I don't. He might not say anything. He might just appear as like a beacon of hope or something.
maybe the Ahsoka's riding him, or
maybe he's gonna just be off in the distance. I don't know, but I do think we'll see him in some way.
I guess Hera would want to ride him before Ahsoka. That'd be kind of weird, but
whoa! This is PG-13.
We're talking about wolves.
Okay.
Jonesy, what is your Razor Crest moment?
Gary kind of stole mine in the chat. You popped on the screen. It was the Katana fleet. Like, I was really hoping we would see the Katana fleet come in and we would just have this gigantic military Navy force, with the Chimera leading the charge. It's been repaired and everything else, but we get the Katana fleet. But since my thunder was stolen, that was strike 3, by the way, Gary, tonight. Thank you very much.
Did he say that before I said it? I didn't even check that. I didn't catch that, but
yeah, but
because
anyway.
you can blame me for bringing it up.
Well, I don't know, whoever you all look like to me. But I think if I go back now, I'm just going to say like Chopper dies. I'm just going to say Chopper doesn't make it out. I think Chopper, finally, being the little sociopath, murderous little bucket of bolts that he is, I think he gives his life for someone at the end of the day. So we'll go with something like that. Selfless. Well, at some point. Now, granted, he can come back, but we're going to say like Chopper's dead at some point.
At some point, they're going to bring him up on war crimes because, man, that guy's got a long list of stuff that.
Hey, as long as you're on the side of the one who writes the history books, you're all right, right? You have to color that story a little bit. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave the show there. I mean, it's been 2 hours. We're at the 2 hour mark, so I think we've done our duty here. So, this has been a great discussion, honestly, if I do say so myself. A lot to speculate on, and given we don't really have a whole lot, I think we've done enough damage here that should set everybody up and hype everybody up even more if they have not already. So don't forget, we've got a number of shows now in the can that we've done that are all kind of leading up to this Ahsoka series. Most of it is kind of based on some of the Rebels characters, and we're going to continue to do so this weekend as well. So please take a look at some of the backlog or listen to some of the backlog episodes that we've got. If this isn't enough for you and you really want to kind of get into the Rebels mood, season 5 here.
Check out our Ahsoka playlist over on YouTube. We've got them all categorized there, as well as any of the new shows that really focus on Ahsoka. So you've got it all in one place. This episode will be there as well, so you can finish up if you're in the car, if you just got nothing going on over the weekend, just want to get to really do that last chance, go all in before you get to the episode.
Yep. Speaking of going all in,
we're very spoiler free too, which is great. I love not knowing a whole lot going into the series. It's a lot of fun. But
yeah,
sorry to ruin your segue there. Yeah, speaking of a lot of fun, there you go. You got a third one just to cap it off. Just make sure we got the
speaking of a lot of fun.
Speaking of the third one, I don't know. Go on.
Yeah, huge thanks to all the folks that came out to the live stream tonight. Great chat, and there are a lot of interaction. Really appreciate everyone coming out. Charlie, Steph, Sky, Alexandra, Jack, Music Train, Cube Dude, Kathy, Alex, Keaton, Rob, Gary, Skywalker's Academy, He's Kid from the 90s, Stargate Pioneer, Hard Counter, Qui-Gon Jay. If I missed anybody, my sincerest apologies. Was not intentional, but it's late, so I make mistakes. So, Anyway, no, thanks for coming out. CantinaCast.com/YouTube. If you're listening and you'd like to come out and join us, especially on premiere night. So if you are going to be up at 9 p.m. Central on Wednesday evening, the three of us will be back, and we will do the 2-episode premiere of Ahsoka. It's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a long show. Going to get Lauren nice and caffeinated for everyone, so she would be there for the long haul.
That's if she's not unhinged by then, because
right.
Yeah.
And again, go out to the YouTube channel and support Lauren's content over there for the Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view as well. She did a fantastic job on that preview, so you're going to want to hang around for that one, especially in a couple of weeks when she gets the full review out.
Yep. All right, Lauren, any final thoughts, words before we get out of here?
Sleep tight.
Hang on tight.
Right. Rest up. Yeah.
Rest up. Jonesy, what about you?
Now we'll see everybody later.
Okay, cool. Join us again here in just a few days because we're going to be talking Thrawn. for anybody that's uninitiated into who he is, and it'll be from the perspective of course, the Ahsoka series. We're not going to get into a full deep dive of Thrawn because he's got a lot of his story there. But I want to kind of do a juxtaposition between the Legends Thrawn and the canon Thrawn, and then kind of lead into where we are with Ahsoka. Why are you looking at your watch? I got to edit this. Don't worry about it. And then the other...
this is what we do. Like, hey, we're getting ready to leave. Any last moments? And 10 minutes later, we've got more show.
Yeah. And then we got also, after that, we'll talk about Zeb and Chopper. So we're not done with our coverage. So, all right, I will end there. We'll see you guys here in just a few days, and I'm going to hit credits right now.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.